according to our posted agenda. And we have a quorum and we can begin. So we will officially begin. I'm going to give a few remarks and then we will continue through the. We have looked at having speakers come in, and this week we do not have a speaker, which I think is fine because we can go through some of the administrative stuff. We have a lot of other action items to take care of. And then next month, we'll make sure that we try to get somebody to do a half-hour presentation up front on some exciting energy technology or something that's happening in the area as part of our educational efforts and educate ourselves. So thank you everybody for attending. It is hard to believe we are in April of 2021, but moving forward and moving along, we've got a lot to share today. So looking forward to hearing all of your updates and reports. This is, as I've said before, and many people have said to me, I think one of the most active committees where everybody is doing a lot of work. So thank you again for all of your commitment to the Alternative Energy Committee. Approval of the meeting minutes. I've circulated the, oh, I'm on the wrong agenda. So I circulated the March 18th meeting minutes. Did everybody have a chance to review those? I'll give you a moment, and then when you're ready, somebody can make a motion to approve the meeting minutes or suggest changes or edits that we might need to incorporate. And I want to thank Debbie.
To approve.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Pat. So Steve Winter makes the motion, Pat Gooding seconds. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, and we'll go around. You have to say your name because it's a roll call vote. Tanya Bodell, aye.
Pat Gooding, aye. Pat Gooding, aye.
Steve Winter, aye.
Debbie Cook, aye.
Tyler Tebow, aye.
Mike Schmidt, I wasn't present for the meeting, so I don't vote, right?
You should abstain.
Mike Schmidt, abstain.
All right, so the meeting's passed. Thank you. Now we do have a guest, and so what I'd like to do is do a quick roundtable set of introductions as for ourselves as well as for Paul. So Tanya Bodell, I'm the chair of the Alternative Energy Committee. I've been a consultant to the electricity industry for more than 25 years.
I'm Steve Winter. I think I'm the longest standing member of the committee. Right now, I guess my primary role is trying to push the electricity aggregation program to completion somehow.
We'll get there.
Pat Gooding, I've been with the committee since 2014 with 1 year off and focused on helping with the Go Electric and some other initiatives.
Debbie Cook, secretary. And is it Paul Sharon? Is that?
Hi, Mrs. Cook.
Do you see what it says on my screen?
It says Whitney and Jason.
Yeah. I'm down in North Carolina.
It's very nice to see you. How is everybody?
We're good. He grew up across the street from me. And so Whitney, my daughter, and he were went to school together. Yeah.
Old King Street.
Yep.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see you, Paul.
Tyler
Paul,
Tebow.
why don't you? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
This is my first year on the Energy Committee. I'm also part of the Microgrid Subcommittee. I'm a manager of engineering at Eversource.
Mike Schmidt, Alternative Energy Committee member for just over a year, and I am the Assistant Operations Manager at Hull Municipal Light Plant.
Nice to meet you all.
Steve and Lydia, would you like to do an introduction?
Lydia, I'm Lydia St. Ange, and I am the liaison for the school committee.
I'm Steve Girardi, Water Commission, Cohasset, former AEC member, chair, and part of the Microgrid Subcommittee. And engineer manager at Hingham Municipal Light Plant. That's it.
And Paul, you can finally introduce yourself after me. I'm Brianna Bennett. I work for the town of Cohasset. I'm a sustainability advisor.
Nice to meet you guys. I'm Paul Sheeran, your friendly neighborhood builder. I grew up in Cohasset, as Mrs. Cook mentioned. I have been building around Cohasset and Situate and Hingham for the last 10 years or so. And the One Pleasant Street building in Cohasset is currently up for a raise and reconstruct permit, and it's being heard right now by the planning board. And that's basically here to see what kind of alternative energy options there are for the building.
Excellent. Well, welcome, Paul. We're glad to have you here. I think what I'd like to do, we didn't connect until within 48 hours, which is why you're not on the agenda, but
Yep.
that also gives us the freedom to be able to open up a conversation with you. So I think instead of moving straight into Earth Day, do you want to share a little bit about what you're doing and then see what suggestions members of the committee might have, or we might just ask you questions. Did you look into this? Would you look into this? What do you think of this? And then that can potentially allow us to take some things offline to provide some of our resources to you.
Yeah, sure. We are scheduled to have our second meeting on the 14th, which I think it may or may not be confirmed tomorrow. We're just waiting for some stuff to come in, but it's still relatively early on in the permitting stage. But the building right now is primarily office and retail, and I've owned it since 2015, and put some money fixing up the outside, but the inside is kind of falling apart more or less. Utilities are failing. It is the most unenergy efficient building on planet Earth relative to insulation and being able to retain hot and cold air. And so I just figured that, this is a perfect time to try to design a new building. My whole background is new construction. So I just decided that the building's useful life has ended, and I presented a new building basically on the same footprint that the current building is on. However, the new building is proposed to have 3 full floors. The first floor being office and retail, the second floor being residential, and the third floor being residential, 7 apartments on each floor. The main reason, I think, other than having a new building and one that would be dramatically more energy efficient, as I'm familiar with the energy codes, or at least the residential, and the houses are, tighter than snare drums in terms of what they require for all of our values and all these things. So, I would say that my electric bill is probably $700 or $800 a month. And gas is through the roof during the wintertime. But the energy efficiency was one reason, and 2 was to make really the building a true mixed use building, where I do have office and retail on the first floor. I have a lot of tenants that want to come back once the new building is built. But I've always thought that more apartments, especially in the center of Cohasset, was something that the town needed. And in the back of my mind, it kind of serves the master plan, which is trying to develop a little bit more density in the center of town to support the businesses. So having that whole package put together and currently being presented to the planning board is kind of an exciting opportunity. I haven't, other than floor plans, elevations, we're going through landscape architecture, we have stormwater, all of those things. I haven't really stepped into the process of actually figuring out, utilities, whether I'm going to go all electric mini splits or whether I'm going to gas pipe the whole building and put forced hot and cold air with, the traditional condensers with gas fired furnaces. So I know that most of the utilities are going to be highly energy efficient just from the home energy rater guys that I use down the Cape. But specifics are still up in the air in terms of those insulation. And then the chairwoman, Amy, of the planning board had suggested that I do a little bit more homework on some of the more alternative options. So I think we're going to incorporate some electric car chargers on site. But other than that, solar and things like that, I'm really at the beginning stages. I don't know much about what my options are, what the incentives are, what, all of that type of stuff. So that's why I was happy to join the call.
We're glad to have you. And the address, what's the address again of the property?
It's Pleasant Street. It's the James Brook building, right on the other side of the train tracks behind the Art Center.
Oh, got it. Got it.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So I just want to open it up. I told Paul that we had a brain trust of people who know what's what and what incentives might be available, who have done this themselves. So who would like to take the lead and jump in? I promise you it's a brain trust. Steve Girardi, I know you probably took your camera off, but I would hope you would talk about your solar panels and battery.
I don't have a battery. I do have solar in my house. So the solar, you're talking about the apartments by James, you said James Brook, right? By the water department's well field?
The James Brook culvert is just something that runs through the property, which is kind of how it got its name. But this is right in downtown Cohasset, across from where the old Strawberry Parfait used to be.
Oh, okay.
The Pleasant Street, parallel with the train tracks going. Yeah.
Actually, this is my boss calling me. I'll get right back to you.
Okay, sure. So one of the things we've been looking at, Paul, for the town is building solar in the town.
Mm-hmm.
There's different groups of incentives for different types of end users, and residential is one, and municipalities are another. There's a certain amount of allocated credits depending on what category you fall into. And the municipal credits are still kicking around. There's a new program, Smart 2.0, which hasn't been approved yet. That would open up another 1,600 megawatts of credits. And they, the lucrativeness has been ratcheting down, but it is at a point where you could do solar panel installation depending on your roof. You could do solar panels and offset your electricity, and it could pay for itself, potentially even be less than what the current rates are. And so you'd have a fixed, you could do a fixed plan for 20 years or whatever. You could also hire somebody to put them on yourself. This is very, very popular in California. It's not something that we looked at for the town because the town can't use the tax credit, but 22% of the cost of installation can be reimbursed to you on a federal credit level. And depending on what investment you make associated with that, for example, if you're going to upgrade your electrical panel and say you're upgrading it for purposes of the solar and the car chargers, then we'll just say it's for purposes of the solar, but you get the benefit for the car chargers, you would get 22% off of the cost of that upgraded panel.
Okay.
So there's definitely associated, if you were replacing a roof, which you're not, but there might be additional costs associated with your roof that you can claim are there because maybe you're going to reinforce it anyway, but you can say you're reinforcing it because of the solar panels. Again, you get 22% off from the federal incentives. Those are still active. And then there's also state incentives that you could realize. There are lots of developers who will help you talk through this, who will help you figure out how to realize this. We can give you a list of names of folks who are doing that. And it's just something to explore.
Yeah, no, thank you. I don't, yeah, I think once I figure out what the draw of the building is going to be, you know, I don't know whether you're supposed, is it like an all or none type thing, or whether you can just put enough panels in to do, you know, a fractional offset, or how that works. But I was hoping that I would be able to connect with somebody who's kind of like a general contractor in that area that would be able to put together all the pieces of the puzzle that I could just, you know, hire and take the reins in that department.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Steve Girardi can definitely give you some good names of solar installers and solar developers who could come up with different alternatives. And we have a list of companies that we reached out to who tend to do larger systems, but I mean, if you're doing $700 a month on average, I mean, I would say that's about 7 kilowatt hours a month, maybe. So, you know, it could be sizable enough to make it worth their while. And it's commercial is the other thing.
Yep.
I think one of the things to consider is, how do you get paid back from the users who normally would pay the electricity bill? I assume they normally pay the electricity bill. Can you allocate to them?
The other thing that you could throw in there is, from a resiliency standpoint, is opting for a battery. You know, Generac and Tesla both provide power walls. I looked into them for my house, and you know, and we do have a lot of outages, so that's why I was looking into it in terms of keeping everything running rather than going into a traditional generator for that purpose.
So it's either, is it the oversupply that feeds the battery similar to the oversupply that you'd sell back to the grid, or am I getting that right?
You don't have to take it directly from your solar panels. You could just charge up during the low cost hours at night.
Okay.
And pay a low price, because I think you're going to be time of use. You're going to have to pay based on the hourly price. And that also is a benefit of the solar, is because it's producing, it can either feed directly into your building, which is the most lucrative way to do it, because you save both the delivery costs as well as the energy supply costs, and you're going to save it at the peak rates, right? And during the peak hours when the sun is shining. So it's more lucrative. Or you can just simply produce it and sell it and get a credit. It's basically a financial credit. So if it's physically serving your building, it would be offsetting your electricity quantity. And if you're just delivering it into the system, you would get a dollar value to offset your cost. So there's different ways, and a good developer can tell you the different options and how you should be thinking about doing it. You know, it's interesting because you've got the residential, you've got the commercial. Are you going to have any low income housing?
Yes, it's I think 25% of the 14 units have committed to affordable.
Okay,
And then,
so that actually puts you in a whole different bracket, which is very, very lucrative.
okay,
Because if you have the low income housing, even if it's not 100% of the building, you can possibly get into that category. I don't know what the threshold is, but you can possibly get into the category to get the extra credits paid back to you. So it could really not just pay for itself, but result in a lower price. And then you just have to figure out, how do you recoup it from your tenants? And if to follow up on Pat's suggestion about the backup battery and resiliency, you know, given how many outages we have in Cohasset, because we're at the end of the line, I think an office space that has backup generation is going to be much more valuable than an office space that doesn't. Because one thing that people in town in COVID, working from home, having the lights go out and their computer charge, you know, going down, and inability to access the internet, even necessarily, possibly even through their cell phone, you know, people started to realize the value of reliability from a work perspective. And if it's a commercial building, depending on what they're selling, the stores, you know, they may also value having power when power is otherwise out. If it's a restaurant, maybe people will go there just to, warm up or whatever because the lights are on. So it's just something to think about. I think resiliency and reliability, resiliency being the ability to get back up and running quicker, that is something that people in this town in particular are starting to understand a lot more and value, because we don't have it from National Grid. Where we are on the system is a very weak part of the system, and a lot of stuff happens before the electricity gets to us. So it's something to think about, but of course it comes down to dollars and cents. I would say luckily there are incentives in place at the federal level as well as at the state level that are going to be passed soon, which make it, not necessarily a no-brainer, although in some cases a no-brainer. In the town's case, a no-brainer. In the low-income housing aspect of it, a no-brainer. Potentially in the residential, commercial, mixed-use side, also a no-brainer. So something to think about, and you can either have the developer install it and enter into a long-term contract with them, which would convey with the house, or you'd have to buy it out if you sold it, or pay for it yourself, and in which case you own it and you get all the benefits. But Steve, you installed solar panels on your house.
Yep. Correct. I did a purchase power agreement, which now a lot of the developers are starting to move away from, because they're not cost effective, because it's cheaper in the long run to own the panels. When I got mine, it was just kind of like the burst of solar time, and they were offering everybody cheap rates, which has benefited now, but at the time it was only a difference of 1 cent per kilowatt hours. Now we're at a spread of 14 cents, which is beneficial. But you're building, do you have multiple meters
Yes.
that you're building? Or
Yeah, I think there's 4.
Which meter has the $700 bill? Is it the common meter, or is it the
Well, that's
store
what makes
meter?
owning my building fun, is that I can't pass on the electric cost to my tenants because nobody can tell me what meter powers what part of the building. I can generalize, knowing some of these, who's in there more. Like the flower shop lady has a big cooler in the back of her unit. The restaurant had a big draw in the front when that was running, so I have an idea of where the power draw is coming from. But is that bill is basically on 1 meter, and then there are 3 other meters that have relatively smaller bills on a monthly basis.
So you really got 2 options. Either you hire a really good electrician to really separate the meters per unit, which I definitely would recommend doing, or combine everything into one service. Then you can pay for the electricity yourself and put a large system in. Honestly, me personally, if I was just because we do this all the time, I would get an electrician and make sure each unit has their own meter, and you can avoid that cost.
Yeah, he actually mentioned metering all the apartments separately and then figuring out how you would separate the first floor, and whether that would, whether the 2 retail units would have their own meters. But I just didn't know. I have no idea if you incorporated solar in the building, how it all works with still being able to pass on the electric cost to each one of those meters. And
when you do that, like a municipal light plant, we can't do this, but like, the good old Eversource, Tyler, you can add the solar folks can actually do a Z form and allocate credits to the various meters in your building.
Okay. So you can essentially,
it's like virtual net metering. So basically you could have a solar system installed with, you might have a common meter. I don't know how it's set up, but you can allocate credits on a Z form to the 4 various meters on your building.
Okay.
I have never done it because we don't do it, but I know everybody asks, hey, can I allocate it to my friend down in Alabama? I'm like, no, but you can. It's called a Z form.
So Paul, can I, you had said that, you were thinking about sort of which direction to go, whether it's sort of the electric route or, the fossil fuel route or whatever. And, about the roadmap, the climate roadmap bill that just got signed. And by 2030, we're supposed to have at least 50% weaned off fossil fuels, and by 2050 we're supposed to be 100%. So you'd be ahead of the game, I think, if you were trying to think in terms of sort of the all electric building and kind of even a demonstration kind of a building. There's so many exciting things happening now with, going electric, and as you know, the ductless mini splits and all of those kind of things. But, it's becoming more and more of a possibility. And I think, I don't know, I mean, we haven't discussed as a committee or anything about, whether people are going to have to retrofit away from fossil fuels, I mean, to get to net zero by 2050, but some things are going to have to happen. And so, I mean, I think we as a committee hopefully are going to try to encourage, going as much electric as possible, and like not putting electric gas stoves in, but induction stoves and things like that. So hopefully all of those things you will be thinking about, and really, and it'd be really cool if you've come to us and we're thinking about it, and we can kind of use you as kind of a demonstration building for sort of going forward.
Yeah.
Paul, you may want to look around for a subcontractor that specializes in net zero building. Somebody that has experience to look at a comprehensive low carbon or zero carbon building.
Okay. Yeah.
Also, it may have already been mentioned here, but there are already a good state incentives for low income for solar for low income housing, and you have several low income units you're planning on building. So you may want to look into that. We're thinking of in the early stages of thinking about a community solar project, and it's really very attractive if you have low income off takers that can take advantage of the state incentives. So whether you put panels on your roof yourself, buy panels and put them on the roof, or whether you go a community solar route, the fact that you're going to have some low income housing there, I think will help you.
Okay, good. Yeah. I'm hoping that, the budget will allow for all of these things. I intend to keep the building forever, pass it on to my kids, and that's kind of the dream. And so that's why in my mind, this type of thing is way more beneficial, if I'm going to hold the building for a long time. I wasn't aware that you could rent the panels versus owning the panels, and I don't know what the cost difference, if I'm understanding that correctly, would be. But to Mrs. Cook's point, some of my home energy raters have suggested that I lean heavily towards electric, given how efficient a lot of these new products are. And in addition to the fact that I'm kind of a nervous Irishman as it is, so the less fire in the building, whether it's from somebody's stove or a furnace, the better in my mind. So yeah, I thank you.
Paul, professional advice I would give you. The first thing I would do is separate all those meters.
Yeah. Okay.
I would telling you it'll benefit you in the long run.
Paul, a few years ago, I went on a building tour, a net zero building tour in Boston. Some developer was converting an old brewery actually into condominiums, and it was a brick building. But anyways, he was so enthusiastic about his net zero construction. And of course, one of the main questions we had for him is, what does it cost you? And he told us that it cost him maybe a premium of maybe 5% more in its construction costs. But he said he was going to quickly recoup all that within a few years because of lower maintenance costs. So I don't think that if you do it right, that net zero construction, at the cost of it should be an obstacle. And that was several years ago that I think 4 years ago, I went on that building tour, and prices have only come down on renewable energy since then.
Okay. Yeah,
So I think
kind of exciting.
it is exciting. I personally like the fact you're thinking about putting in electric car chargers. You know, there were programs, I don't know if they're out of money at this point, but there are programs with National Grid, which you should call National Grid and see what they have to offer. But they funded our car chargers that we installed at the town, and they had a grid modernization program where they were funding, they had money to install. So something for you to think about is, can you get that type of money? Is it grant money? Is there, you know, if you wanted to get funding from the Mass CEC, I think these are resources. I just don't know what they're doing on the private side because we've been so focused on the public side. But I think that there are opportunities at it. Why don't we offline put together a list of potential resources that we're just aware of? We're not advocating for them. We're just saying, here are some contacts that you can connect with. And obviously you do the due diligence, you talk to them, you decide if this works for you. But I know that the folks on this call have a lot of great contacts with developers who, for no money up front, will put the panels on and give you the credits that you get. You pay for the electricity and then they give you the credits on your bill. And often the credits can be more than the price of the electricity that you're paying to them. So you're offsetting your bill. So that's just lots of opportunity. It just requires some groundwork, but we can definitely give you a list of the potential opportunities and potential contacts for you to start doing some research.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd really appreciate that.
All right, awesome, excellent. Well, we need to move to the next topic, but Paul, thank you for visiting us. You're allowed to continue to stay on as we talk through the rest of it if you want to see what we're doing, but I know life is busy and it looks like you have a little baby, or at least did. So
Yeah, my kids are actually downstairs and I'm hoping they're not spray painting the walls. I'm right now, so I have a 6 and an 8-year-old downstairs.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. And whenever you need to jump off, that's fine. But you're invited to stay as well.
Thank you. Thank you all. Very you all.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay. So that was helpful. So let's all, I think, just by email, no discussion about the merits, put together some contacts to send along. And I think Debbie, you might have some, and I know Steve, you have some as well.
Yep.
Okay, quarterly presentation. And anything more on this before we move on to quarterly presentation to the select board? Okay. Thank you. So quarterly presentation to the select board, quick update. I'm not going to walk through it. I gave a quarterly presentation to the select board last week, the week before. I guess it was end of March. The last Tuesday in March, and walk through the initiatives that we're doing, mainly as an update. The one question and ask we had was what they wanted us to do about the Go Electric program, and that's going to be one of the next 2 topics we talk about. And they are, as always, they're still interested in learning more. And so we did receive permission from the select board to continue to explore what that opportunity might look like. And so when we get there, I think we should consider whether or not we want to vote to create a subcommittee. Other than that, the quarterly presentation was for the most part just updating on our status and where we are on things. There most certainly is support for electric school buses. Corey Evans in particular was very supportive of that. And Carrie Thompson is, of course, very supportive of the green energy. So that is where we are. We did get some concern by Jack Creighton that we are starting to become an advocacy organization. And the reality is, in some ways, we are tasked with being an advocacy organization, in that we are tasked with looking at opportunities and presenting them to the town and the citizens and the businesses. On the other hand, I think we do need to continue to look at being green as not just about being environmentally friendly, but balancing that with some of the other costs and benefits associated with it, including the dollar signs that are associated with it. But I don't have any concern about us being independent and providing informed advice about how the town should proceed. Are there any questions? I know some of you were in the audience at the presentation.
I don't have a question. I'm just going to make the comment that once again, you did a fabulous job recapping everything and, you know, handling all the questions, Tanya, and great asset for all of us. I have to admit, I was thrown by the comment that you just mentioned, and maybe I put more into it than was meant by his comment, but it just took me aback. Wondered if we need to go back and remind people, you know, just what we've been charged with doing, because I think, you know, if it's the question of promoting electric versus fossil fuels, I think what we're really trying to do is promote renewable energy. So that excludes fossil fuel. And so I guess maybe that's something that I think we really need to not sweep under the rug, but get out in the open and just find out what his concerns are in whatever manner that is appropriate with him.
If it's all right, I would like to read the relevant part of our mission statement mandate as assigned to us by the select board a couple years ago when we reconstituted.
Steve, can you, Steve, please be sure to read the entire thing. Don't put any ellipses. Just read the entire
I don't have
word.
the entire thing in front of me here. I'll look it up on our website here. So I'll read it to you later then, because I only have the excerpt that is relevant to discuss renewable energy. I just wanted to make the point that yes, indeed, we do have the mandate to promote renewable energy. It says that explicitly in the mandate. It also mentions, the affordability part of it, but it does explicitly say that we will promote renewable energy, which means, obviously, that we will discourage the use of fossil fuels. So, but if you like, I'll read the entire statement here as soon as I find it on the website.
And can I just say something that probably is really out of line, but in the interest of
Let me just stop you. If it's really out of line, then no. If you can.
all right, well,
couch
let me make it general enough that, you know, when people make certain comments, if they have a personal agenda, either they should divulge it or not. So anyway, the person had a personal agenda.
I didn't interpret it as such personally. I'm, as you know, somebody listening to the conversation, I just thought it was a misunderstanding. That's the way I interpreted it.
If you read the LinkedIn profile, oil and gas interests.
Okay,
Well, look,
talk about our
most certainly, there's a reason why we're called the Alternative Energy Committee.
Exactly.
So, and our number one, when Steve gets that, I'm looking at a prior presentation we made. Actually, I'll pull it up. Steve, I'll just pull it up right now. And if you want to do the reading.
I got it right here.
Okay, go for it.
You want me to read it?
Yep.
Okay. The Alternative Energy Committee advances the Town of Cohasset's energy initiatives. AEC activities promote energy efficiencies and the use of clean, renewable, and alternative energy technologies. Notice it says promote. Associated benefits include decreasing energy use and associated costs, reducing waste and emissions, and contributing to a healthy, sustainable environment. There you have it.
What are you reading, Steve? Just for the record.
I'm reading the first paragraph on our website, the Alternative Energy website, which I I believe was taken right from the article that, well, no, it wasn't an article, right from the statement that the Board of Selectmen approved in establishing our reconstituted committee.
Can I have screen sharing capability? I think it's always useful to revisit what our objectives and goals are and what's clearly in our mandate. So I'm going to take a moment to do this. And you are all lucky because I used to make the South Shore Arts Center recite the mission statement before every board meeting. I don't make you do that. But I think it is important that we remind ourselves regularly what we are here to do. And so let me figure out where my, oh, I might not be able to do it. Hold on a second. Let me try one more time. I'm going to do my entire screen at the risk of creating a mirror. Does everybody see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this was a quarterly meeting, a quarterly presentation that we provided to the select board, reminding them of the goals and objectives that they set for us. Very clearly in the first bullet, we have to investigate and identify alternative energy resources and opportunities for municipal energy efficiency and resilience. We support the town and staff in exploring grants and procurement options that maximize safety, energy efficiency, and reduced emissions. We investigate community-wide residential and business energy efficient and clean energy options. We contribute to public awareness and education on town initiatives and long-term benefits of achieving Cohasset strategic energy efficiency objectives. Together with the town manager, we report to the select board quarterly on the town's progress and cost-saving benefits associated with the green community status and other energy-based policies that benefit the town and its citizens. And that is open-ended. And support other committees as requested by the Board of Selectmen. So I think, again, it's like bylaws for our committee. If you have ideas, initiatives, it's important for us to look at the goals and objectives that we've been tasked with and which one of these bullets does the initiative fall under. Regardless of whether or not falls under this one of these bullets, because of the quarterly meetings, we don't have any authority on our own unless it's given to us by the select board. So as you know, I've been very careful about making sure we have the blessing of the select board before we proceed with anything, whether it's community aggregation or community solar or moving forward with exploring and electrify everything type of campaign. So we, you know, some of those things we have to get their approval, but just as a general practice, it is important for us to keep these goals and objectives in mind and make sure that we explain to the select board how they're consistent. Our initiatives are consistent with these goals and objectives, but these quarterly meetings give them the power to, you know, either give us a yay or nay on what we're supposed to do with our time and our resources. So that is that. Are there any questions or comments on these goals and objectives?
Where did you get that information from, those bullets? Is there a document where this lives?
Yes, there's an actual document. So let's make this an action item, Debbie. Brianna and I will find the actual document and send it around to everybody. And then you can print it and you can post it up on your wall by your computer that you do your meeting on. And then we will universally, in a kumbaya type of way, recite the charter of the Alternative Energy Committee at least once a quarter so that we are aware of what we are supposed to be doing and how we're supposed to do it.
Does anybody remember who wrote the blurb on the Alternative Energy website?
Yeah, that was done when Mary Jo and Steve were chairing the committee, when we recognized that was the year I took off, that we recognized that it wasn't really a committee. And they had to put together something to be proposed to the select board to basically reconstitute the committee. So that's when that was written.
So that's what we presented to the select board. That's how I remember it also.
Exactly. And I think, Tanya, those bullets, as you put them on that document, I think those go a little bit further in sort of illuminating what we're trying to do and put it in context. And maybe there's a place for those on the website so people can refer to it. And because I mean, what we've got there on the website today is just really a charter.
Yeah, but it's not officially the charter. So I have from Mary Jo the background and the charge where I grabbed these bullets. And so I will send this out, and then we may have to look at the writing that's on the website and replace it with this, just to be completely 100% consistent with our charter. So I will forward this document around to everybody, but we'll put it in the minutes as an action item, and hopefully before this meeting is over, I will have met this action item. So put it in for me as an action item. And then Brianna, if you could take this to our webmaster and have them put it on a dominant place on our website, so it's clear what we are charged with doing. Okay. Fabulous. Again, I want to thank everybody for their passion. And you know, my philosophy is when you're given authority, operate within that authority. And in town operations, it's very dangerous to act now and ask for forgiveness later. There are ethics rules against it. There's other things. So it's safer. We have a lot of support in this town by the town people, as well as by the leadership in the town. And I want to keep it that way. Okay. Any other comments before we move on to Earth Day? All right. On to Earth Day we go. So, Brianna, do you want to talk about Earth Day, what the opportunities are, and the Cohasset 143 movies, the information table, and then if you want, I can talk about electric charging stations, EV PHEV parade, and then we can talk about what's going to be required to make these things happen.
Sure, and I have kind of some stuff written up for all three of the Earth Day bullets we have on the agenda. So I can start with the, let's see, I can start with kind of what we have for the AEC table, which will be happening on April 24th, which is a Saturday. It's the same day as the Earth Day Committee trash pickup. And so we have a lot of content. I've made some slides that I'm going to share my screen and show you all. But first I'm going to show you, okay, so we have these posters. I have a couple of them that Steve dropped off at the town hall. It's kind of dark here. We have
Tanya gets
one.
credit for these, by the way.
This is on community choice aggregation. Don't know if you can all see it. And this one, it doesn't look like there's any out-of-date content. It's probably the biggest thing that we would have at the table. The rest of the content I've designed is more poster-shaped. So if you all like this is one thing we have, and this is our community aggregation content. We don't have to vote on each item, I suppose, right now, but I'm just going to go through and show you all. So that's what I have for that. And then there's two other large posters I have here, one of which is alternative energy and the success we've had so far. This one is out of date, so if we like it, we could find the up-to-date version on Tanya's PowerPoint slides. It's got production savings for the current solar array that we already have built. Just want to show you all that. And then this is a community choice poster, which I know that there is an updated version on Tanya's PowerPoint slides. If you all like this, we can have it blown up and have this as a big poster as well at the table. But this is kind of that timeline. It only goes up to 2020, which is why we'd want to get an updated version. So that's the big posters. I'm trying to kind of go through quickly. Let me know if you want me to hold one up again.
We're gonna have to start calling you Vanna.
I have a lot of different items for different things we're doing. So for the AEC itself, I created a really basic poster that we could have that links to our webpage with a QR code. I got really big on the QR codes for this table because we're trying to be as COVID safe as possible. The Microgrid Mondays, I created a card-sized thing about Microgrid Mondays where people can use a QR code to access the YouTube page. And if they're interested, they can take the card. So I was thinking we could print out a series of those ones. Everything else we'll probably have one copy of. Mass save and energy efficiency, we wanted to include something about them at our table. I created a poster to kind of stand in for that information, and it has a QR code to the Mass Save website where people can order their own home audit for free. But Adam is currently talking with National Grid to try and get Mass Save information for the table, so we might have official information there if it works. National Grid has not been super responsive, so we don't have anyone yet, but we're also talking to them about possibly, you know, having a person present at either our EV ceremony or our table on Earth Day. These are just possibilities. And then I showed you the community aggregation poster, and I'm going to print out the Mariner article on solar procurement. It's one from December, which kind of says that we were entering the next phase. And then I made a little card that has a map of the EV charger stations in town. So it shows the 3 locations, it lists them out and their addresses. We could print those out and give it to people. So it says Cohasset's electric charging stations on one side, and on the other side of the card, it's pocket sized. It has the 3 charging locations. So now I'm gonna share my screen and just show you what the visuals of everything I just spurted at you looks like. I'm trying to go through quickly so I don't hold everyone's time up. I don't think I can share my Dropbox directly, so I have to share where's share? Where's the share? Share and click. Okay, so this is the AEC flyer I had mentioned, which has basically our mandate that I had taken off the website, which might not necessarily be correct. So let me know if you'd like me to edit that. But that's the AEC flyer. I'll just keep switching my screen. And let me know if you want me to go back.
Yeah, go ahead. So I was just thinking, Brianna, you know how we have the Cohasset sign, which has Cohasset established whatever, whatever? I wonder if we can mimic that same thing for the Alternative Energy Committee. But anyway, sorry, go ahead. I'm getting into details.
I'm just gonna write that down. But yes, I believe the screen you're looking at now has the little map. So that would be for the EV charging station. And then,
don't we have 5 locations?
Are there 5 locations? I don't know where the other 2 are. And unfortunately, ChargePoint only thinks that there's 16 ports, which is also not true. So I was pretty sure it was 22. So before this gets finalized, we need to go back and figure out how many there are.
I have a map in, I think, the December quarterly report to the select board, either December or before that. And we have 5 locations with 4 ports, but ChargePoint only recognizes 3 of them.
Okay. Okay, maybe I need to call ChargePoint this week and see if we can get the other ones official. This is the Mass Save flyer that I had just created. Hopefully they'll have their own content so that I can use that instead, and it might be less wordy. But this is just the content that I had kind of taken from their website, and I added a QR code. And then this is the Microgrid Mondays tab. So it doesn't have too much on it because we want people to go to the YouTube page and watch it. I don't want them to read too much into it first. I want them to just take the hour and watch. So it's simple. And that's that's something we would have on the table as cards to give out, probably. So I don't know what you all think, but that's kind of what we have for the table going. Things we're going to need include volunteers. I think we need at least 2 people to be at the table on April 24th to give out this information and to talk to people. That's going to be a big part of it, is explaining everything we've been doing. And then I don't know if we need to get the table. If someone has a table they could bring, that would be great. I've never put on a town event, so maybe they provide a table to us, but just in case, does anyone have a table and maybe 2 chairs? Okay, great. Okay.
I have lots of tables and lots of chairs.
Okay.
So
And then,
I think I should probably be there to talk about the aggregation program.
okay, great.
By the way, I forgot to show you, Brianna, but Good Energy provided some very nice handouts. I guess you can't really see it very well.
Oh, good.
Anyways,
Okay.
it's on heavy cardstock, glossy. It's very high quality printing thing, and people can take it with them if they want. It has you know, a outline of the program and answers a few questions on the back. So anyways, we'll have something to give people, and also your handouts too. So
Okay, that's great. And I'm assuming that we are allowed, we're minimizing what we are giving people, but I think we're allowed to give out some stuff. We'll have kind of, you know, we'll be wearing masks. We'll
oh,
have
the COVID,
sanitizer.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
And does anyone else want to volunteer on the day of to be at the table? This is just for the 24th, and it'll be 9 to 2 p.m., I believe. That's how long the trash pickup day is going. And I think we'd probably want to get there around 8:30 to help set up. Not the trash pickup, we just have to set up our table. And then don't volunteer too quick, because you can also feel free to volunteer for our EV ceremony, which we're going to need a lot of people. So.
Should we do it?
I would expect everybody to volunteer for one of these, at least.
So,
Brianna, can you go through the opportunities so we can divvy it up, as opposed to, because I want to know more about the EV ceremony.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Pat?
I was just going to say, perhaps we could do shifts. You know, so because it's a long time to stand there. So maybe we could kind of split it up a little bit. I'd be happy to, you know, participate in either or both as needed.
Okay,
I don't know
great.
that I could stand there for 5 hours. I don't know, that might strain my.
Yeah, I like Pat's suggestion there. Also, I'd like to go out and pick up trash for a while too. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
So.
Why don't we do this? Let's, Brianna, why don't you finish up with the different initiatives that we have and that we're doing, and then maybe we can do like a Google sign up or some type of online sign up form with 1 hour shifts. And then people can do multiple shifts, start out in the morning, pick up trash, come back, head out, you know, whatever people can do.
That's
But
a great
I think
idea.
it's important that every member of the committee, if you can, participate in some way.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great idea. And that's good, because there's a lot of things that need to happen for the EV ceremony day, which I guess I could talk about now, and then we could talk about now, and then maybe talk about the 143 TV stuff after, because this is a little more relevant. So we have, Tanya, you can talk about it, but I did make a document with some of the details kind of on it that I'm just going to share while we go through it for clarity purposes. So there's a lot of details that are going to go into this, but the basic idea of it is that it's going to be a ceremonial ribbon cutting at an EV charging station in the town, and then it's going to be followed by an EV, I'm saying demonstration. Now, it's a parade, but we're not allowed to call it parade, and I've also noted that here. I was told today that that is considered illegal, so at this time, because of COVID, so we need to come up with some sort of other term than parade. So in this document, it's referred to as demonstration. Now, I have a bunch of details listed here. We can go through this, or Tanya, if you can lead it if you want.
You know, again, I think let's go high level because this needs to be approved by the board. But I'll give the background on this. Chris Senior and I had a conversation. He said, you know what? We never did a ribbon cutting ceremony for the EV stations. We should do that. And I said, that would be great. And then as we were thinking about Earth Day and what we could do, I said, you know, why don't we do it around Earth Day? And we could maybe have a, you know, calling all EVs in the town and PHEVs, anybody who has one, to just get in line and go from one site to another, or maybe start at one, end up at, and do a little map and then end up at the last one, have some remarks by various leaders in the town, and officially cut the ribbon with big fake scissors and a big colorful ribbon.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a great day. And Chris Senior is excited for it to happen. He is tentatively approved for us to kind of think about April 25th, which is the Sunday, and it's the day after the trash pickup and our AEC table. Oh, I thought you all were frozen. My bad. And I had proposed we do it at noon, so that just because noon seems like a good time to cut the ribbon. But if anyone has any recommendations for a different date or time, we can move forward with that. We're going to be presenting, hopefully, the proposal to the select board on the 13th. That's what Chris has requested. So we kind of have to have the details finalized by then. Tanya, I'm not sure if you want to give the presentation to the select board. I think you should. And yeah, so Chris also recommended that we start either at the school parking lot, proceeding through town and ending at the library, or we start at the library and end at the school, mostly because both places have enough parking to accommodate everyone. And it'll give people a chance to go through town and still pass the other charging station at the town lot. We would require people to pre-register in advance to have their car in the demonstration. Obviously, cars could join and we're not going to stop them, but it would be good to get as much of an accurate head count as possible beforehand so we know how many cars to expect and how much to make space for. And we can also send out reminders to them when it's coming up. We'll have to keep COVID safety in mind. So for the ribbon cutting ceremony itself, I had suggested we live stream it to Cohasset pages, so that includes Facebook and YouTube. And then we would need a person to be able to live stream it. And then we would have in-person access to the event for people who are participating in the car parade. And as Tanya said, big ribbon and big scissors are important. Does anyone happen to own a big ribbon or big ribbon and big scissors for this type of event? If you do, please speak now. We're going to be looking for those. So
I don't have one, but we use something for the ribbon cutting at the solar array. So Chris may know.
Okay. That would be really good if the town had like a big scissors on standby, because I have to assume they're hard to get your hands on. So, okay.
Sure, we can find them on Amazon.
They're $30 on Amazon, and they say you can have them say grand opening or not. Either way, not too bad.
The ribbon should be green, I think.
Okay.
Right, Lydia?
Would it be any other color? Yes.
No.
And
Tie a yellow ribbon. I think green. So I guess the thing is on this one, how do people, this is the first time you're hearing about this, unless you sat in on the selectmen's the select board's presentation. And that's mainly because in between our two meetings, Chris and I had this conversation, and then I looked at it as potentially relevant to Earth Day. Do you think it's too much? Do you think we should think about doing it as part of some other event? Do you think it goes with Earth Day? You know, Earth Day is not Earth Day, it's Earth Week in Cohasset. Eco-Hasset, by the way, which I think is so cute. What do people think?
I think it belongs with Earth Day. I really like the idea of including it as part of Earth Day, and also gets the AEC a little more exposure at the same time.
I agree. I think it really makes sense, you know, and really puts some focus on it, gives some meat to the bones.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful to point out that these, you know, however we can to the citizens of the town that the chargers in particular were obtained with grant money, so that they understand that that's one of the benefits for pursuing some of these things.
I think having people pre-register for it is also a brilliant way to get a good list of electric vehicles in town, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Well played, well played.
Oh, my evil plan has been discovered.
I feel a very filled out spreadsheet coming in your future.
As I do.
So we're gonna only allow people from Cohasset to be in this.
But I think any EV could be in it. I don't think we have to limit it to Cohasset, but I do think we need to keep people in the car. We don't want them congregating. We have to, you know, get more details around COVID. You know, the other thing we might want to think about is limiting the live scissor cutting, and maybe we have some of our state electors, maybe even federal representatives, who can participate or send a pre-recorded video of them with little scissors and a green ribbon cutting it with us. I just, you know, with the virtual world, you can do that.
I'm wondering
It's
if,
COVID-friendly.
did you say which location where you're cutting the ribbon? Did you?
It'll be either at the library or the school.
Okay, I'm just wondering, like, if you would do the cutting as like a drive-in movie style cutting, so the people who were in your car demonstration would just be told like where to park in like a semicircle, and they could safely stay in their car. I feel like that's like a very acceptable way of gathering right now.
I think so too. I think we should do that. I don't think people should leave their cars. Although we did want to have some electric vehicles, we're thinking of reaching out to some of it's getting too late to do this though, but reaching out to some of the car dealerships who sell electric vehicles and having them, I think because of COVID, we can't do this, but it would, in a non-COVID world, and if we had thought about this before with more time, maybe what we should have, what we could have done would have been have car dealers who sell electric vehicles to have a representative, have their car, and have people looking around. I just think with COVID, that starts to violate some of the COVID policies.
Mm-hmm.
But I like drive-in movies. Drive in, drive by. And I love the fact that a key member of our select board and a key member of our alternative energy committee would be driving in the lead of the demonstration with their electric vehicles.
Yeah, I have not asked Debbie if she would be interested in doing this, but I have heard through the grapevine that you have a Tesla, Debbie. So if you'd like to help lead the car parade with Paul Schubert, I think that would be great. And you don't have to, I mean, I think you're going to say yes, but you don't have to answer right now on the spot. If you don't want to, we can talk offline. But I think it'd be good. We need to talk with Paul Schubert and see if he is available to do it on that day as well.
So I absolutely would. One of the things that I had offered for Earth Day was to allow people to have, with appointments, like a test drive of the Tesla, whether like up at the MBTA station, that is so open and such a great place. And I wouldn't, I mean, if people wanted to, I've been fully vaccinated. I mean, and I'd sanitize. And if it was by appointment, I'd love to give, let people try it out. So that's a thought.
Let's think
I
about
love that. Like sample Tesla driving all afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, I'd sanitize between people and if they wanted to. Now, it seemed like there was a lot of interest when I talked to Earth, the people at Earth Day about it. But then it sort of fell a little bit by the wayside. But anyway, that is something I'm very willing to do if it's allowed, if we can sanitize, to keep the windows open. I mean, I'd have no qualms, but.
Okay.
I think also, Debbie, you have to make sure you hand out your card as a reference so that you can start competing with Paul Schubert on getting enough people to buy Teslas per your recommendation that you get your own Powerwall. It only takes five Tesla purchases to get your own wall, and that's
I
how
had
come
no
Paul has a wall.
idea.
Oh, you better watch out because Paul's going to be handing his card out.
Oh, I've got cards to hand out. I'll definitely. Oh, so.
All right.
I guess-
Is there anybody? So the 25th sounds good. The 12th. I don't. I think there definitely is some work to get this done. We just have to get our arms around what. I'm happy to help in any way. Unfortunately, I don't have an electric vehicle. Otherwise, I'd be also maybe the caboose. But look, people are passionate about their electric vehicles and their PHEVs, and I think giving them an opportunity to showcase them on a Sunday at noon is lovely.
Can I say something though about the noon? And I don't know, where we'll be at this time with churches and stuff, but I know that, traditionally they haven't wanted people to have things on the common, or, like I would say 1 o'clock, just to make sure that if there is any church things going on or whatever, that everybody's, cleared out.
I agree.
Okay. Typically, I used to go to church. I think we would always be done by 10, but that was in the Hull, and I know there's masses after that, so I'll look into it. I'll make sure there's no funeral scheduled for that day, especially or a wedding or something.
A wedding and funeral won't be on a Sunday. They keep that for services.
Oh,
I think
good.
almost every church doesn't do weddings or funerals on Sunday, but definitely just go to each of the churches. I think we really only have to worry about the ones on the common, maybe St. Anthony's.
Yeah.
Whatever the churches are in town.
Not
And
St.
see what
Anthony's,
the schedule
but
is.
like the Unitarian Church used to meet at 10. See, I don't really know, if they'll be doing anything, in person, but they would have coffee afterwards. And sort of the rule of thumb was not to do anything, that was reserved for churches until, so I don't know what, 1 o'clock I was thinking. Anyway, something just to be aware.
Okay, I'll look into it and make sure that and see if there's any conflicts.
Brianna, the only thing, Unitarian Church was usually the last one, so I think you'd be safe if you just checked with them.
Okay.
Well, no one's really having coffee hour right now. So that, it's like not your typical Sunday traffic. I know St. Stephen's is still mostly doing Zoom and beach services. So they're not even really in-house, just for that end of the common.
Let's just confirm and stay away from what a traditional time would be. I think that's respectful.
Yeah.
Okay, then Cohasset 143.
And then 143, let me X out of this. So I have notes. So I'm here also requesting sponsorship from the AEC. Or first, I'm just going to tell you about this thing that's happening. So I'm pulling up my notes. the 350 Mass South Shore node is going to be showing movies as a part of this Earth Year movie a month thing, and we're starting with Paris to Pittsburgh. Has anyone here seen Paris to Pittsburgh besides Steve and myself? Okay, I have a trailer, but for the sake of time, we don't need to watch it. It's basically a movie about Americans and American communities that took action for climate change into their own hands after the US left the Paris Agreement. It has a lot of focus on clean energy transportation, electricity generation, a lot of discussion about renewable energy, on top of other subjects. It also goes into sea level rise, the cost of adapting versus mitigating, the uphill battle pushing the science of it as a nonpartisan entity. In a historically partisan space, and there's a lot of local work, the progress programs. Those are some of the big things that I'd like to highlight from the movie. It's a National Geographic film. We're going to be showing it on 143 TV. I have Dawn's permission, and we're going to be creating a panel discussion. The movie is an hour and 17 minutes. We'll be showing it in hour-and-a-half spaces. So the rest of the 13 minutes will be divvied up in 3 sections as discussions that'll go before, after, and during the movie. Steve Wenner will be on the discussion panel, and so will Laura Burns from Hingham Net Zero and Jake Valancourt from the Hull Light Board. And they'll be talking about the themes of the movie and how they connect to our towns, what we've done in the last few years, and kind of the emotions that the movie strikes for us as people who live here. So we're requesting AEC sponsorship for the movie, along with other organizations. We're approaching Hingham Net Zero and others, and it's going to be shown multiple times in the latter half of April. It's not happening next week. And agreeing to sponsor would be giving us permission to include AEC in the list of other committees and organizations like Hingham Net Zero as a sponsor on our flyer and Facebook event, and that's pretty much the extent of it. There is a chance this event won't move forward too. Just to be honest, something could happen between now and the time that it does, and until I need to talk to Chris Sr. to get it 100% done. So we wouldn't advertise any sort of agreement to sponsor until the event was set in the schedule and already programmed into the TV. So if there was some sort of issue with getting the event up, we would not be, the AEC would not have been connected to the event. We're not going to put your name out there until we just get the final approval from Chris Sr. And that's the extent of it. I dropped the movie off today for Dawn at 143 TV too, so he has it. We're doing our discussion panel, and then we're sending that over to him. We're excited to show the movie. It's a really good movie. I have seen it.
So how can we see it in advance, Brianna?
So a member of our group has a physical copy of it. It's also available on Disney Plus. And it was available for free on National Geographic's website and mobile app. I think they took it down so that it's accessible on Disney Plus. So you might have to.
I believe it's available on Vudu also.
It's on Vudu?
Yes.
Okay. And it's probably on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
But if you can't access it through any of those streaming options in advance of the showing, then I could connect you with Turner and we can get you the DVD.
I mean, I don't think we've ever been asked to sponsor anything, and I'm not really sure that what's involved in us quote unquote sponsoring it, but assuming that it falls in line with what we're trying to do, I would see no issue with it. Tanya probably could speak to that better than I could, what the rules are around it.
I don't like the word sponsor because it implies there's a monetary contribution, but I think support, most certainly. That would be the motion I'd be looking for. If somebody wants to make a motion to support these 3 activities, or if you want to do them one at a time, we could do that as well. So do you want to do it one by
I'll
one?
move that the AEC support the 3 proposed activities for Earth Day that Brianna has summarized for us.
Steve, do I have a second?
I'd be hesitant to support or stand behind the video before seeing it. I'm sure it's all great. Without seeing the video, I don't know if it's fair to support it.
That's actually a good point, Mike.
Not a bad point. It's a fair point. And I could send you the trailer, which is the gist of the movie, but I know that it doesn't quite get the same thing across.
Do you need the AEC support for that, or do you just are you just asking for people from the AEC who have watched the movie who want to talk about what it means in the context of Cohasset?
No, it would purely be used to kind of say, like, here's all the different local groups and committees that are supporting our event, and we would kind of have it listed out, and the AEC would be included on that. So it's kind of a mutual, not a sponsorship, it's a mutual advertisement opportunity, pretty much. Kind of like what we did with Microgrid Mondays, where we didn't have anyone from NECA on the call, but we still put them on our thing, and we said they were a sponsor because we had mutual interests.
Mutual activities to make it happen.
Oh.
I guess the activity or the resources we would provide and support would be a member of our committee who would, right? That's basically our resource, or that member could operate as an independent citizen that also could do that without the Alternative Energy Committee logo.
Well, the movie's going to be shown regardless of whether or not AEC has anything to do with it. It's just to get a little more publicity and recognition and get a larger audience. That's the whole point of, or one of the points of having AEC sponsor it.
Yeah, I think I agree with Mike. Having not seen it could be perfectly fine, but if there's like a naked baboon running through the middle of it or something, I just don't know.
Well, if you're a Trump supporter, I suppose you would not like the movie because it definitely shows, it starts off showing Trump declaring that he wasn't elected to support Paris. He was elected to represent Pittsburgh. And then it switches to the mayor of Pittsburgh. It says, what? What are you saying? Pittsburgh supports the Paris Agreement. So if you are a Trump supporter, you won't like the movie.
Well, so that raises another point, Steve, which is if it's a political commentary or has political flavor to it, I don't think we can be involved. I think we can't be involved in politics as a town committee.
I agree with you there, and that's why I sat and watched the movie. I think that it would be up for you to decide if it goes too much into politics, but it's not a political movie, and I don't consider it partisan. It talks about climate change. So to the extent that you think climate change is a political issue, which I'm not sure if we do as the Alternative Energy Committee, then that could be that's a good point for hesitancy to.
Well, the extent of the political aspect there is that you hear Trump say that we're not going to do anything for the environment. And then you have all these other people, mayors of towns and other people saying, yes, we are going to do, this is what we are doing for the environment, for the climate. So to that extent, that's the extent of the political there, Trump saying, we're not going to do anything, and everybody else saying, this is what we're doing anyways. So.
It's the reason there's a political reference in the movie is because it's just context for the US leaving the Paris Agreement, and then it's everything that's happened since and what communities are doing as on a local level.
I just want to say neither of you are making the case that this is not political. In fact, everything you're saying is making it sound political. And when Steve Winter says, well, if you're a Trump supporter and you're going to not like this movie, that's political. And when you say it's about the US leaving the Paris Accord and everything that happened since, that's political. So I think we have two problems that's come out in this discussion, which is why we discuss it. One is most of us, a majority of us haven't seen it. So any vote that we made would be at our peril about putting the credibility of the Alternative Energy Committee and our own personal credibility on the line. No matter how much we trust the people who have seen it. The second is, it sounds like there are a lot of political undertones, political vignettes, political commentary without making it commentary, which we are not, we just cannot get into the middle of, especially given the earlier conversation we had from the fact that the members of our select board represent different political parties. And that is who supports us. I don't think it's fair for us as an independent alternative energy committee who is apolitical to put our name or logo in support of watching a film that, based on all the examples Brianna and Steve just mentioned, clearly has politics involved. But I don't know, how do other people feel?
I think in the scheme of things, with all the other things that we're trying to do, I think it's just a risk that could be backlash for us. And I think Steve can and has before gone as a private citizen to speak to these things. And I think that's totally appropriate. I just don't think that we need to risk. First of all, I haven't seen it, as we've talked about, so I don't even know what we're talking about, but I just think we have too many other things going on to risk getting backlash from citizens or the select board or whomever might take umbrage at us putting our name out there.
Well, and it also doesn't mean that for subsequent movies, you know, when we have a little more time to review them, I mean, we could jump in a little later too, right? I mean,
that is true. So they're going to be showing a different movie every month, and this one probably, while I don't believe it's political in a partisan sense, the other ones, there's no question of whether there's political undertones or anything. Like Chasing Coral is one of the movies we're looking at, which is about coral reefs, and there's no political atmosphere to the movie at all. Obviously, the Paris Agreement itself is a policy. It's an international agreement, and that itself inherits politics, but not in a partisan sense. But I agree with the hesitancy, especially after the group itself has been kind of acclaimed as an advocacy group. I can understand wanting to steer away from potential misconstruement of your sponsorships. So, we can kind of table the discussion of sponsoring movies until a different month. This was just an additional Earth Day opportunity that I had considered, the hesitancy that we'd probably face for supporting this movie. So I just wanted to present it to you all anyways. But I'm, for the interest of time too, I completely understand it. We can move forward with supporting the other two events and kind of tabling this discussion for a different month if that's what people are interested in. I also just separately recommend you all watch the movie.
Yeah, it is a very good movie. I recommend you watch it. Even if you're a Trump supporter, I don't think you'll be offended, really.
And there are, I know for a fact, there's Republicans, Democrats, Independents in the movie. There are speaking people that have different political affiliations.
I would say the one thing, Tanya, and I agree with you, as an appointed board, even an elected board, you can't be partisan. You have to work with everybody and extend hands to everybody. It is what it is. If you're a subgroup like, Hingham Net Zero, it doesn't matter, you're not appointed. You're just a group with a common cause. So as a representative of the town, you really have to work with everybody and extend your hands to everybody, no matter what affiliation they are. And that's and I honestly, the select board, they're all nice people. And I watch them all the time, and I don't see any tendencies on either side, no matter who they like and who they don't. They literally all work together, and they work well together, except for the CYBSA lights. I was very disappointed. But other than that, they do work well together. And that's just a personal opinion. That's all.
Brianna, do you have a list of movies that you'll be showing in the future, just so that people can get an idea ahead of time, like what future months hold for your featured films?
I have it somewhere. It's not certified, but we were, for May, we're looking at showing Merchants of Doubt, I believe, which is also, I would not recommend that the AEC publicly come out in support of that movie. But then we're also going to be showing Chasing Coral, The Human Element, which Steve recommended. And then I can't off the top of my head think of the other two, but we had about the first 6 months tentatively planned out. We need to figure out copyright issues first before we can come to you with a definite thing.
But by the way, the human element is totally non-political. There's not a hint of any political stuff in it. It's all about the experience of various communities in fighting against the effects of climate change. The flooding, the fires, etc.
Okay, good. Well, look, we have a motion to support all three. There has been no second. So
Okay, I'll withdraw the motion.
withdraw the motion first, and then let me ask, do we have a motion to support the 2 Earth Day events, the table and the electric vehicle charging station ribbon cutting ceremony and demonstration? Is that Pat?
Yes, make the motion to approve moving forward with both Earth Day events.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Pat. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I was gonna say, wait, we have a problem on one of these two. All right, thank you, Debbie. Is there any discussion? All right, so we're gonna take a roll call vote on this. We have a motion to move forward with, as a committee, to move forward with and support the implementation of 2 Earth Day events, one being a table with information about initiatives that the Alternative Energy Committee has been engaged in, and information that the Alternative Energy Committee already has on its site or elsewhere. And the second is an electric vehicle charging station ribbon cutting ceremony and a demonstration project, the details of which will be presented to the select board on the 13th for approval to proceed. But subject to that approval from the select board, this vote is to support both of those initiatives. We have a motion, we have a second. We've asked for discussion. There's no more discussion. So we're taking a roll call vote, and I will start with Tanya Bodell, aye.
Steve Winter, aye.
Debbie Cook, aye.
Mike Schmidt, aye.
Tyler Tebow, aye.
Did you say aye?
I did.
Okay. Could you just say it again? Because I don't just say Pat Gooding, aye.
Pat Gooding, aye.
Okay, perfect. All right, very good. It passes
Can I just
unanimously.
say one thing? For the spreadsheet for because it seems like we're going to have to really get hustling, especially for the EV thing, so that you also put down the tasks and people can sign up, because there's going to be, I think, tasks other than manning stations. So we can really have make it very clear who's doing what on this, because we won't have another meeting, right? I mean, we're going to be.
No, we won't. So let's, now that we've given permission to pursue both initiatives, do we want to, Brianna, you've been taking the lead on these. Do you want to keep doing that? Do you want some help? Do you want sort of like a ad hoc committee of people, volunteers, a core, or do you just want to, identify what you're looking for volunteers to do and get people to sign up? What would be the best?
If you're proposing a subcommittee, I don't think that's a bad idea, because this is going to take a lot of work. If people aren't interested in that, I can do it. But I think since it requires so much on all of your ends, especially with the volunteering and everything, it would probably be good for some sort of committee to be formed that can focus on it.
I mean, the other thing is, since everybody should be involved, we could have a planning meeting next week as the Alternative Energy Committee. and do it a committee-wide. Normally, a subcommittee would move forward with things. We could create a subcommittee for each of the initiatives and have those people take the lead. And I think that would probably populate. We just can't have 4 people on a subcommittee, otherwise it creates a quorum.
Oh, let's do it. I recommend a planning meeting before the select board meeting on the 13th, that where we can kind of finalize our proposal. And I can send along information and we can make sure we have the volunteers secured.
And so that planning meeting would be, do you want us to do another meeting as an alternative energy committee meeting for that? Or would it be a sub, it just has to be 3 or less of the members of the alternative energy committee. Otherwise we have a quorum. And
And
we'd
we
need to do open meeting law.
It's up to you. I don't know. I don't mind who's there. I don't mind if it's a quorum or not, and if it's open meeting or not.
I know you don't mind, but the state does. So let's do this. Why
Yeah.
don't you just send out a sign up so we can see who's interested in what, and it might automatically sort of fill itself out.
Great.
And then we'll see, you know, I'm happy to work with you one-on-one on, you know, both of these, and then, you know, do some outreach. I think it's pretty clear who's interested in doing what. In some cases. Okay. So why don't we plan, we got to get moving on this. So why don't we do a meeting tomorrow, Brianna, to just sort of talk. And if there's one other person who would like to meet with us as part of this, we would be happy to have you as well. My day tomorrow is Swiss cheese, so we'd have to figure out what time to meet, but we're virtual, so.
I can do it if you want another person.
Okay, so great, Pat, thank you. So Pat and Tanya will work with Brianna to just sort of get some organized, to just start to rein this in and move it forward. Okay. Woo! All right, let me tell you, Earth Day is looking like the AEC is all over it, man. This is good. Thank you everybody for your support. Okay, next. Go electric. What do you have for us, Debbie? I think a quick update, right?
Quick update. Well, I mean, we had a meeting after you met with the selectmen and our board, select board. So basically, I think everybody's still, you know, moving forward about, we're looking into actual logistical things, logos and things like that. There's been a lot of enthusiasm. So we're looking into website templates and everything. So, so people are, you know, trying to sort of structure how this might look. So that's where we are.
What about the content? Like, what is it that is being done? What does it look like? Who would be reached out to? Is it a are they looking at, is it going to be an individual residential citizens initiative, or is it going to be backed by any other town? Is that being discussed?
Well, I think nothing has changed really since I reported before. I mean, Marshfield, Matt Parent, he says, you know, Marshfield is all set. He's chair of the AEC committee, and he said, you know, that Marshfield is involved. And I think I told you Situate is looking at seeing if they can extend their electrical aggregation mandate to move into this. So they want to just expand that mandate. So each town, I think, will have slightly different involvement. So that's kind of where we are. And basically I am, you know, and I did want to talk to you. I'm on vacation this week, but you know, sort of with the 3 proposals you were looking at, which I assume is just basically how the committee would be structured vis-a-vis the town of Cohasset. Not because our content, what we want to do, I don't think I don't think anyone is wanting to vacillate from the basic content of this, which is just a very simple educational program with incentives for residents. So none of that's changed.
All right,
Okay.
Debbie, you might tell folks that we now have a logo, and we've been discussing website templates. And Debbie put up a spreadsheet, so we have a list of all the solar suppliers, all the heat pump suppliers, all the EV dealers around, etc. So we have that stuff, and as soon as we have our website and get as much support as we can muster. I mean, if Cohasset AEC will go in on it, otherwise we'll go with just Marshfield's their town support and maybe Situate's, and then we can start calling vendors and asking for what sorts of deals they might want to offer the residents of these 3 towns.
Okay. So we, the Alternative Energy Committee and the members of the Alternative Energy Committee, have to be very careful when we, members of this committee, go out on committee business and then come back and talk about we in the context of some other we.
When I said we, I mean the members of this Go Electric committee.
Right, but that implies you're a part of that, and maybe Debbie's a part of that, and that's not. It creates a potential appearance or actual conflict of interest. We just have to be careful from an ethics point of view. So you can be participating as an individual citizen. Even that has potential. It may have potential ethical issues. But I think the more important thing is we, as the Alternative Energy Committee, are interested in you reporting back on the exploratory efforts that you were tasked with doing as a member of the committee. I just want us to be very careful here, because this is, I think, part of the genesis of Jack's comment. He sensed and heard and saw that there was personal engagement in the effort that was outside of the committee and outside of the town. And I don't want to curb enthusiasm and passion. I just want to be very careful with state ethics rules that we don't cross a line that could get us into trouble. So that's my first thing, which is I think there needs to be caution on our pronouns and how are you wearing when you're reporting back to us? Because when you're reporting back as a member of the Alternative Energy Committee, that's how you should be reporting back. But what you're telling us is there's a lot of momentum and a lot of progress being made. So what is coming before, we, the Alternative Energy Committee, have only been given permission to explore what such a effort might look like. We, the Alternative Energy Committee, have not been given permission to develop a program. We've not been given permission to participate in a program. We've not been given permission to commit the town to such a program. At this point, we're still exploratory. So I think what's given, we went to the select board, we talked in broad strokes about what this electrify everything would look like. And we noted that there was already progress being made with some of the people in other towns, that it could be a multi-town type of effort. Diane Kennedy questioned whether the town wanted to be involved or whether it should be a citizen's effort. And she is still very concerned about that. And she doesn't feel that they, the select board, can make a decision until they know more about what this program looks like. So what is before us, she did give us permission to continue to explore and understand what the program might look like so that we could then bring it back to the select board for the select board to make a decision on how the town should be involved, if at all. So what's before this committee is, are we still comfortable having members of this committee continue outreach and monitoring and exploration, knowing that they are also in their personal capacity engaging in some of the planning if that's what's happening? Or do we want to create sort of an official subcommittee, which hasn't been established yet, for purposes of this exploration? But right now, all we can do as a committee, Alternative Energy Committee, and the resources of this committee, is explore. So I open it up for discussion. What do people think we should be doing as a committee?
It seems to me the way to think of this is that there is a group of citizens that are trying to structure a program, a Go Electric program. And to make it more successful, the members of this citizens group would like to get official endorsement from our various towns, our 3 towns. Now, it looks like there won't be any problem getting the official approval from Marshfield. Situate seems fairly likely too. Don't know about Cohasset, but that's the way to look at it. So this citizens group is coming to the Alternative Energy Committee and saying, we would like you to participate on an official level with this, and because it would make it a lot more successful. But, you know, the committee, the town doesn't have to. And the outline of the project, I think, is pretty simple, as Debbie has emphasized many times. You know, there's not a lot to it. We're simply going to suppliers and asking for discounts. That's basically the thing. So, you know, Diane, I'm not sure about what Diane kind of details Diane wants to know. Does she want to know who the electric vehicle dealers are around here? What does she want to know?
Well, I think before we get to what Diane wants to know, what the select board is going to want to know, I think we have to recognize the fact that what you just described, Steve, puts you into a position of conflict and an potential ethical conflict. And so I think this is why I started by saying we need to be very careful. What you just said is, I'm coming to you, Steve Wenner, as a citizen of Cohasset who's been working with other citizens of other towns to ask you, the Alternative Energy Committee, to support this effort. Did I interpret what you just said correctly?
Debbie, would you say that's correct?
Well, I think, you know, I have to say, Tanya and I have had quite a bit of discussion about this. So I would couch it in a different way, as basically, you know, as because I still, you know, as a representative of the Alternative Energy Committee, this is something that, you know, a group of citizens is interested in doing, and a group of citizens is looking for the town to approach, and we're looking into it with them. So it just shifts it a little bit. Am I getting that right, Tanya?
Yeah, when you say we, when you use that pronoun we, you were talking about we as a representative from the Alternative Energy Committee are exploring it with them.
Right.
In any event, I don't see any conflict here. Where does the conflict arise? There's no monetary benefit to our group of citizens for formulating this thing, whether or not our towns participate on an official level. There's no, you know, I don't understand. Normally, when you think of a conflict, you think of some kind of financial interest that somebody has in a private project that would affect their town business. And
I know that's an obvious, that's an obvious, but in all of our training of ethics, which we have to do, and if you haven't done it within the last 2 years, everybody should do that and get their certificate. And I think I have to do mine again this spring. We all have to do the ethics training every 2 years. And one of the definitions of an ethics challenge or issue, it doesn't have to be monetary. It could just be if you have a personal interest and you're exercising that personal interest in your role as a member of a committee, where the town may have a different interest, that creates a conflict. So I just go back and look. I talked to town council about a separate issue tied to this, and they gave me some pretty strong advice, which is I'm I have to be very careful as the chair of the Alternative Energy Committee speaking about energy issues to the town in a personal capacity. In fact, the state council said I can't because it creates the appearance of a conflict. If I am speaking in a personal capacity, advocating for something, people knowing that I'm the chair of the Alternative Energy Committee may automatically associate my recommendation with the Alternative Energy Committee. And that creates the potential appearance of a conflict. So I want us to be very careful. We sent you guys out as representatives from the Alternative Energy Committee to explore what we might do in this area. And when you come back and report in that capacity as a member of the Alternative Energy Committee coming back, that's great because that's what you're tasked for doing with doing. But when you come back and do exactly what you just said, Steve, where you said, we're just independent citizens who are acting in our citizens capacity, and this is what we're doing. We, the citizens, are doing, and we want you, the committee, to advocate for this, or we want you, the committee, to take this to the select board. Now we're mixed up, right? Do you see what I'm saying? There's a difference. You're wearing a different hat. You're not wearing your Alternative Energy Committee hat. You're wearing your private citizen hat.
Well, I'll ask for your advice then. How do you think we should handle this?
So far, right, you were, as far as this committee is concerned, Debbie and Pat and Steve went out to explore with the select representatives, Diane Kennedy's permission when she attended our meeting. You went out to explore what an alternative to Solarize Plus might look like. Debbie has come back, and in her capacity as a member of the Alternative Energy Committee, she has reported on what that might look like. And she's reported on some of the progress that's being made by citizens in other towns related to what that might look like. We have reported to the select board on that. They told us they can't make a decision right now, and they normally need 3 touches anyway, which is fine, that they don't have enough information to make a decision on whether the town should be involved or not involved, whether it should remain a private citizen.
Debbie and I are confused, and maybe Pat too. We don't know what additional information that the select board wants. What is it that's confusing to them about our concept that they would like more information about?
So I think one of the things they want to know is, what does the program look like? What would be the obligations?
What does look like mean?
So Tanya, can I just jump in 2 seconds? I can
Yeah,
help.
please go ahead, Steve.
So, so when I was former chair of this great committee, Steve, do you remember when we did the we're going to do the Solarize program and kind of mimic what Hingham had done, and we were kind of, you remember? So we kind of rolling. So Chris had stopped me. Actually, it was Mary Jo and I on our heels and say, hey, listen, you can't do this because it puts the town in a liable spot. And between liability and ethics, Steve, you started that pretty good committee that.
So we did it. We went totally the private route.
And so you did. So what Steve did was
town citizen committee, and we just went with it. Then we ultimately were not successful, but it was just because the solar market at the time. But yeah, we just took it totally private.
So so Steve, what you did was that was the right move. You kind of isolated yourself in the AEC, and you really got this thing going. And it obviously didn't go anywhere, but it was. I know what Tanya. I get the select board. I know what Tanya is saying with the ethics. But if you always got a momentum shift that way, like you did before, then you would report back to Tanya. And then I'm not gonna tell. I'll leave it at that. That's Tanya's thing now. But we had that similar situation.
Doing essentially the same approach here. We're approaching the town and asking for the town's endorsement or involvement. And if the town will give it to us, well, we can do it privately. It wouldn't be as successful, but we would have the option of doing that. Just like we did on the Solarize program. The town didn't think it was appropriate to get involved, and actually, I think it was better that we went a private route anyways. You know, that's essentially what we're doing here, I think. I mean, I really, really hope that the town would back this thing as something that's obviously good for the residents of the town. But if the town doesn't want to do it, okay. You know, that's
But you had-
unfortunate, but we can always go with the private route.
But you had
Or,
a lot
the private public route, because one or two of the other towns might officially back it, so.
But you had a lot of support, Steve, when you did that solar. You had Paul Stewart there and a whole bunch of people there supporting it. And we were, I think the AEC stance at the time was supportive. We just couldn't be active.
Yeah, there's nothing, I mean, as I recall, there was never any objection from AEC or the town about the concept or anything. It's just that it's not something the town wanted to take, felt they could do at the time. But yeah, I mean, it was not like, there was no adversarial sort of thing. There was nobody who came on and said, oh, this is a bad idea, or, you know. So I don't know, we didn't seem to have any problem with conflict of interest for that.
Except that what Steve said is you isolate yourselves. I think the question is, when you say come to the town, so right now, if you want to, a group of citizens of Cohasset, Marshfield, and Situate could go to the select board and ask for their support. And what does, and the next question from the select board would be, okay, what does the program look like? And what kind of support do you want? What's your ask from us?
Our ask is just to have a statement from the select board that they recognize this program and believe that it is a good program for the residents of Cohasset to consider. That's all. You know, just an endorsement to say, take a look at this. These guys are putting together a program. If it's, you know, it's, you know, our committee, our Alternative Energy Committee is involved together with similar input from Marshfield and Situate. And we suggest that the residents of Cohasset consider participating in this program or looking into it. We think it will offer some benefits to the residents of Cohasset. That's it. You don't have to give us a cent. It'd be nice to have a few $1,000s for advertising, but if not, okay.
Right now, the Alternative Energy Committee is not involved. The Alternative Energy Committee has sent out exploratory investigation. Members of the committee have gone out to explore what this would look like. That's all we've been tasked to do. So we have to make that clear, number one. So I think what is before this committee today is, what more does this committee want to do? Do we want to continue blessing the exploration of what a program might look like with members of our committee doing that in their capacity as the committee members? Or do we want to basically pull back and say, look, we understand that there are citizens who are engaged in this. You can come before us and get put on the agenda to tell us in your capacity as a private citizen what kind of program is in place and how we, the Alternative Energy Committee, might be able to, what your ask is to the Alternative Energy Committee. We would then have to take that to the select board. The select board would have to decide whether or not we should be able to do it or not do it, or what they should do. So this is the confusion. Right now, the Alternative Energy Committee is not involved in this. We don't have permission to be involved in this other than to explore what a program like Electrify Everything might look like. So what I'm trying to understand from all of you, and then also the rest of the committee, is what do we, at this point, we don't have permission to do anything other than continue to explore, applying resources from our committee, people in our committee, continue to explore what this alternative to Solarize Plus might look like.
But you keep saying that, explore what it looks like, but what does that really mean?
Meaning get to a point where we have a fully fleshed out program and a very clear ask. And you can come to the, and either the representatives of this group come and ask for the Alternative Energy Committee to give their blessing and recommendation to the select board that the town support this and be involved in it and provide resources, or a blessing, or that group of citizens can just go to the select board directly and ask the select board for that. At which point the select board would probably come to us and say, well, what do you think? And in which case we would have to independently talk about the pros and the cons and liabilities. And, you know, is this something that the town wants to be involved in? At the end of the day, it's going to be up to the select board, but we see a lot of benefit to citizens on having access to this information. And if there's a private group that's willing to do that, it's very valuable.
So Tanya,
So-
could I feel like we're sort of getting mired down. And I was just wondering maybe if you could get a sense of the committee of whether there was interest in having an effort like this, you know, be a subcommittee of the AEC. Is that appropriate right now to get the sense of the board and a vote on that? To be honest with you, I would much rather proceed as a subcommittee of the AEC than a citizen. I do find that is, I just feel like that would, for me, be a much more logical way of proceeding. So
Well, it'd make the whole thing much more successful also if it had the, the backing of the town officially, as, the AEC working on it. So yes.
Basically saying, go ahead, go proceed on your fleshing out this program. You're, a subcommittee to flesh out this program.
My only confusion, well, I guess my main confusion is, what additional information does the select board need to know to decide whether they would want the town and the AEC to be involved? Because the outline of the program is pretty clear. I mean, it's not a mystery and not difficult to understand. It's just a discount, bulk buying discount program, various electrical technologies and products. So I suppose we could draft a statement that we would like the select board to bless, just saying essentially that we, the select board, would like the residents of Cohasset to know that the Alternative Energy Committee is working with similar committees in Marshfield and Situate to develop a bulk buying program for electrical technologies and products, and that when the program has reached a certain stage, you may want to check out their website and see what sorts of deals you can get. Something simple like that. That's all. It's just we want to offer the folks in our towns the chance to get good deals on electrical products. And
I think the timing of going through this was unfortunate, the update of the select board, because they had a lot of things on their agenda. So I think that was one strike against sort of going into this. But I think the exploration of this has to include very clearly all the aspects, what would this plan look like? So an outline of what is Go Electric, bullets, whatever it is, and then what explicitly are you looking for from town support? So what would the AEC advocate the town support, including this information on their website, some minor mailing information, access to citizens' addresses for mailing documents, including it in a water bill, whatever those things are, and outline them in a very concise fashion so that they can see, here's what this looks like. And I think almost my reaction is, it doesn't really matter that this is Marshfield and Situate. We're proposing this, as a possible thing for Cohasset citizens that the select board may want to get behind. And here's why. Because it fits in with what we're chartered to do as the AEC, which is providing citizens with, energy efficient options. Really what we're trying to do is reiterate all the things that the state is offering. So we have to make it something is not controversial, right? So look, this mass saves out here, they're offering heat pumps, they're offering all these things. All we're trying to do is to bring that down to the local level to make sure our citizens understand that these are available to them and to see the ancillary benefits of taking part in that. And oh, by the way, if in addition we can get local vendors and companies involved and they can also provide an additional benefit, that's even better. But I think we need to, if we're going to continue to work on this, we have to focus it toward what our mission is and how it benefits the town and why the town should support it, and just look at it, just very plainly and simply.
Well said.
Yeah, you said that very well. So it sounds like what we need to do is to come up with a one-page ask of the town that just laid out, just says simply that we're asking the town to endorse a project, and as far as resources are concerned, we're just asking that permission to include a flyer with the water bill. We'd like, $3,000 for advertising expenses. What else did you say, Pat? I don't know. Was there something else that we were asking the town?
To reiterate this, if you're going to propose that this has its own website, which has been under discussion, is there a link on, the Cohasset?
Oh yeah, right. We would like to have a link on the town web, on the AEC page of the town website, to link to the website for the program, for the Go Electric program. Yes.
Okay, we're getting into details. I just want to take it back up to the...
Apparently that's what you wanted to hear, right? Were the details.
Well, we would need the details before we can decide as an alternative energy committee whether to recommend to the select board whether or not to support it. If that's the path the steering group of citizens wants to take. So our committee right now is tasked with continuing to explore and understand what an alternative to Solarize Plus might be. Full stop. We have members of our committee who have gone out and have started participating with other towns who are involved with developing this program. And in fact, our own committee members, in their capacity as individual citizens, are involved in developing this program. So what we ultimately, to make a decision, you need to have an ask, whether it's at the Alternative Energy Committee or the Select Board. I think what I want to know from this, we have three options for this committee sitting here today. One is continue to say members of our committee in their role as a committee can go out and, also wearing the hat of residential citizens, continue to develop this program and bring it back to us with a final very clearly laid out. Ideally, bylaws for the organization, objectives, mission statement. I care less about the logo, but that's sometimes very powerful as well. A name, but very clearly lay out in written format what that would look like, what the support from the town would be, and explain it to the Alternative Energy Committee so that we as a committee could take a vote on whether to recommend it to the town or not. I mean, I think that's the natural next step. The other alternative is just to say, you know what, we've been given permission to explore it. We're just a committee. If that citizen group wants to come to us with that information for us as a committee to make a vote, we can do that. It's just the only people who will be able to vote on it are going to be the non-citizen members. Do you see? There's different ways we can structure this to achieve the same objective. One is cleaner, one is messier. And so the question before us is, we've been given permission to continue to explore. That means the Alternative Energy Committee has been given permission to continue to explore. We have not been given permission to develop, engage, commit, any of the sponsor, any of that. We've just been given permission to apply resources if we want. And those resources could be our own committee members. It could be establishing a subcommittee, or it could just simply be listening to the citizens group who have an ask very clearly laid out and fleshed out in the future. So that's what's before us today. And I think I'm just struggling with trying to understand, while still being true to what our authority is, which is very limited, how can we move forward in the best interest of the town of Cohasset?
As far as the mission statement goes, we do have a draft mission statement, but we haven't finalized it, have we, Debbie?
Not necessarily, but let me ask Tanya. So could you make a motion of how you feel as something to guide us in the discussion of how you feel this should be structured? I think I don't know who should make the motion, or I feel like you have something more strongly in your head of how you feel to position us.
Right. Well, look, if we create a subcommittee, the subcommittee has to be very tightly tasked with nothing more than exploration and understanding about what this program might look like. I'm worried about creating a subcommittee with the same people who are also involved in this other group in their capacity as individual citizens, because it creates a conflict. The other option is just say the Alternative Energy Committee, as Steve initially said, the cleanest thing is to say, well, the cleanest thing is you can go out as members of the committee, Alternative Energy Committee, but not as, citizen participants in this other thing. Or we can say you can be citizens participants, continue doing what you're doing, and then come to us as citizens, ideally with the group from Marshfield and Situate if it's going to be a larger program, and present to the Alternative Energy Committee as any guests would present. And then the remaining members of the Alternative Energy Committee can ask questions and understand what you're proposing, and then take a vote on how to present it to the board. So I just, again, I don't know, Steve, you've been through this. Is Steve on still? Maybe he jumped off.
No.
I'm here.
Steve, you've been through this. What would you recommend we do to keep it clean and ethical and consistent with the limited permission we've been given by the select board to explore this further?
So I think what we did last time was Steve spearheaded his group, which was great. And he came back and reported XYZ. So the AEC could support, we couldn't vote on anything. And that was explicit that Christine had told us we couldn't do. So we could be there, listen, give ideas, but ultimately it was a separate identity from the AEC because we couldn't have that conflict between the two groups. I know at that time there was a lot of confusion.
Well,
And
I think I can clarify a little bit. Just as here, there is an official state Solarize Plus program. And back in those days, there was also an official state Solarize program, and with a lot of administrative overhead and required, competitive bidding and all this stuff. And so I think that we talked about this in AEC and decided that, the town didn't feel like it could take on that task. So then that's when I went out and did it as a private citizen. We're in a similar situation now, and the fact that there is or was an official Solarize Plus program, but because of budget problems, the Clean Energy Center is not doing it, didn't do it this year. So the idea was that, we can still do it privately, but it would sure have a lot more bang if we could get town endorsements. So that's basically the idea. By the way,
Steve,
just before, I'm sorry?
Steve, a great example of a good group is that Hingham Net Zero. They are literally tasked doing exactly what you want to do by the Board of Selectmen. I know there's no, if I remember, I don't think there's any members of the AEC in Hingham are members, but they get, they all probably talk and they're all part of the same group. But they're specific. I think what you want to do, and I think this would be a really good thing, is, maybe Tanya and people can help, is that you want to be tasked with the Hingham Net Zero group. Like, just, you want to follow their path, because they were tasked by their Board of Selectmen to form the group and be the advocacy group for climate change. And under there, they're doing what you want to do, vehicles, heat pumps, all electric. I mean, they're really
similar with
active.
Hull. Hull did the same thing. The town select board in Hull voted to form a climate committee and to report back to the town. But both Hull and Hingham are muni towns, and so they don't. I don't know. They didn't really have a separate energy committee to begin with, like we do in Cohasset. So the situation is a little bit different.
Well, Hingham has.
Nevertheless, the net zero group in Hingham is working with their town, their select board, and proposing. They were formed by the select board, and they're proposing articles before the select board. They're going to have one, I guess, this spring. So it's like, in essence, it's like, well, they have maybe a bit more of a mandate than our committee does, but I think it's a bit similar in spirit to what we're doing as a select board appointed committee. Net Zero is also a select board appointed committee of Hingham, and the Climate Action Group in Hull is likewise an official committee appointed by the town. So we're kind of in similar situations here. It's just that maybe our mandates are a little bit different, but it's essentially I don't know. I see a lot of similarity.
The Net Zero group that is I might say this wrong because Debbie and you might know better. They're I would say the quasi private group, and the Climate Action Committee works with them, and they've done a lot of good things. And they also have the Alternative Energy Committee. Has been there for 15
Oh, they
years.
do? Okay.
They do,
Okay, I didn't know that.
Because my boss is a liaison to that committee. So they always have 3 tiers, and that Net Zero has really taken off exponentially for good reasons. So, Tanya, I don't know, as a suggestion, you might want to explore a route like that. I mean, I'm not the chair, but I just remember Chris is saying you have to separate. You could support, but you can't be. There is a conflict and there's liability on the town if something goes sideways. If we have a group of manufacturers that sells, a great example, the grinder pumps, right? Everybody got these grinder pumps in where everybody's stuck for 100 $25 fee for 15 years. That's, I think, what they're afraid of, you know, reasonably speaking. So I don't know, Tanya.
Okay, so I look, there's two, in my mind, from this committee's perspective, there's two options. One is to, as a committee, be open and welcome to having any members of the citizen group from the 3 towns that are developing this program to come to us and present to us as the Alternative Energy Committee of Cohasset, so we're aware of what happens. That is consistent with the task and the charge we've been given by the select board, which is to explore, but we're exploring by letting the members of that citizens group come to us. The other approach we can take is continue to have Debbie and Steve as members of the committee be involved with this other group. That's fine, but my problem is when Steve and Debbie come back to report to us as members of the committee, they have to be very careful with their pronouns and come to it from the perspective of members of the committee who have been tasked with doing the exploration. And at this point, my sense is, based on the conversations and based on the language, there's a lot of personal investment in the progress of this group that may create a conflict of interest. So that is my concern with that approach. The third approach would be to officially create a subcommittee that would go out and participate in an independent way with this organization of citizens that is establishing a program, to be able to then report back on what the outlines of that program would look like, to ultimately give an ask to the Alternative Energy Committee to recommend town approval, with town approval being XYZ, whatever those details are. Very clearly laid out, very clear ask, very clear bylaws, controls. So it's very clear what this group is. Are they an LLC? Are they a nonprofit? Are they part of the towns? You know, what is this group? And it's clearly defined. So that would be the third approach. Create an official subcommittee for exploration, continued exploration and participation in that group. The second would be to continue to allow members of this committee in their capacity as the committee members to go and participate in this group to report back in an exploratory, informational way. The third is to not officially charge any of our committee members with going out and understanding what's going on, but let the citizens of that group come to us to report on what they're doing and what they would like us to ultimately ask the Board of Selectmen for when those citizens go to the select board with their ask. So those, I think, are the 3 approaches that we could take as a committee.
Kind of sounds like potentially the third one that you outlined, which was, you know, basically having people operate as Steve did with Solarize Plus and all that, might work the best because it keeps us, you know, sort of in safe zone in terms of, you know, that's a different thing, but they're going to come back and present, and potentially we can support it then to the select board. It sounds like that will give people the freedom to continue to work on it without having this constant back and forth of, you know, are the toes over the line or not?
Right.
Yeah, maybe Pat's right there. I wonder about the complicating the structure. I'm sure that Debbie and I haven't considered making this an LLC group, you know. I don't know, Debbie, is that something?
I don't know.
It was
At
too
this
complicated.
point, I want to say I'm sorry I ever brought it up, and I wish that we could just maybe just, I don't know, pull the plug. You know, I never wanted to have all of this, you know, hassle and have everybody gnashing their teeth over it. So I don't know what to say. I feel very much like I should just pull the plug on it and just move on.
When you say pull the plug on it, what's it?
Just let the Go Electric project go away. I mean, or maybe somebody else will pick up on it or something. Or I resign from the AEC. That's another alternative. It might make it easier. I don't know. I seriously thought it was just it's going to be a simple. I thought that it could be a subcommittee of, of just educating citizens, and I don't know. Anyway, but so I at this point I think it's. Sure everybody is like feels beaten down and sick of the discussion, and I'm ready to
I just, Debbie, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I don't necessarily think you have to abandon it. I think it just needs to be handled in the proper fashion so that we can get people to agree that it's a good thing to pursue from a town perspective. And we just have to go through the right, process and channels and make sure that we're staying with our hat squarely on our head when we're talking about the AEC versus, this Go Electric project that's going on over here. And as long as we can do that, that's fine. I don't think.
I think it would have been so much easier if it was just like, it sounds like with what Steve Giardi was talking about with the net zero folks being different than the Hingham AEC folks. If that had been done that way, then this would all be a moot discussion. So I don't know.
Debbie, I'll make one suggestion to you. You know Laura Burns, right?
Yeah.
You know John Berger.
No.
They're the two folks that started the Hingham Net Zero. Talk to them. I mean, Laura was a selectman. She's running for light board in Hingham. I think she gave great advice on what to do. Then, honestly, table this for now and come back to Tanya and just see what the options are. I think that's the best way of doing it. Outreaching to your neighbors. I think Laura is your best. Honestly, Laura is your best advice right there.
All right. Well, I think, Steve, maybe that's a really a good idea, and I can do that. So I really don't want to cause any problems, and I really don't want anyone gnashing their teeth over this. And it seems like it's becoming a very onerous.
I think our challenge, Debbie, is our hands were tied with Diane Kennedy's instructions, which was, she rightly so. She's like, look, we can't commit to anything or support anything until we know more. Go explore. So we were only given, the Alternative Energy Committee was only given the authority to go explore. But it's exciting and it's amazing and it's wonderful, and there's a lot of potential benefits to the citizens and the residents and the people of the town. And I think that it's very clearly in the Alternative Energy Committee's mission, which we read earlier on the bullet points, very clearly it fits into two of those bullet points. So it is in our authority. The reason why the gnashing is happening, it's not gnashing teeth, it's just we as a committee have a conflict in the sense that we have a set of bullet points that give us the ability to pursue this, and we have been given limited permission to do that by the select board. And then on top of that, in a great way, members of our committee who have been tasked with exploring it are wholeheartedly involved and supportive and creating the program in their capacity as citizens. That's not, none of that's bad. It's just, we have to just walk the different constraints that we have. There's a very fine line that we can walk as a committee, and I, as the chair of the committee, want to make sure that we don't cross that line, and it's not gnashing of teeth, it's just being very careful. So I think I would say this, the committee has been tasked with continuing the exploration. This committee is open for reporting back And I think the choice for you and Steve is, and you have to make this choice. Do you want to continue your involvement with that steering committee as members of the Alternative Energy Committee, only tasked with exploring and contributing, with ideas on the design? Or do you want to continue with that group as independent citizens, as Steve described it, in your citizens hat, who are very involved and have all the degrees of freedom that you need to develop the program, to then bring it back to this committee and recuse yourselves from voting? You'd have to recuse yourselves from voting.
I would like to explore the exploration idea a little bit. I want to build on something Steve had brought up, and that's the liability issue. The concept is to compile offers from various vendors as to what sorts of discounts or program they can offer residents. Well, if something, as Steve says, if something goes wrong with one of these things, does the town incur any liability if the town were to endorse this project? So as part of the exploration, I was hoping we could have gotten this insight by talking to Chris, but we didn't. But as part of the exploration, I think maybe we should talk to the town council and ask him, what he thinks about potential liability problems here. If he says, you're going to have to form an LLC and remove the town from any potential liability, that's important information to know as part of the exploration. So I think that the primary exploration we have to do is to talk to the town. We got to talk to the town council and see what he thinks about this. I mean, as far as the structure of the program, we pretty much know what that's going to be. It's just going to be a website with discounts. But at the exploration, maybe we should interpret that as meaning explore the potential liability and issues for the town, which requires talking to people in the town, not doing something outside, you see, with our little group that Debbie's formed. That's what it seems to me. So, if I think Steve brought up an important point there. Is there any kind of potential liability? And the only way we're going to know is if we talk to a knowledgeable lawyer about it. And so we should talk to our town council, I think. What do you think? That's part of the exploration.
There's a lot of other aspects that you could explore though, right? Without having to go into that particular one. I mean,
but I think that may be one of the key things, like Diane's probably worried about, what is the town getting us? What are we getting the town in for here? So, and we should explore that, I think.
When you say
Maybe.
we, who do you mean we? Who's we?
Myself and Debbie.
In your role as independent citizens and in your role as members of the steering committee of Go Electric, or in your roles as?
No, the Situate and Marshfield people don't need to be involved in that. This is strictly between, the town of Cohasset and us.
So let me recommend this. Why don't you and Debbie make a list of the questions that you'd like to explore with town council. We can share that with Chris and say we are in the Alternative Energy Committee is in an exploratory stage with respect to whether or not this is even a go, no go.
Right.
And one of the key issues seems to be a concern by the select board on liability. So here are some questions that the exploratory team of the Alternative Energy Committee have put together for us to ask Cohasset Town Council for opinion. And we can do that. And I'm just telling you, the first thing the town council is going to come back with is, what is this group? What group is providing this service? It's going to want to know what the program looks like. We're sort of in a chicken egg thing and it's going way too long. So I want to close this up and just focus on the process, not the details. So the question I think really on the table to Debbie and Steve is how do you feel most comfortable proceeding? Do you want to proceed in your role as as members of the steering committee, which you're not doing in your capacity as committee members of the Alternative Energy Committee, but you're very involved with the steering committee of the Go Electric program, is my understanding, right? So do you want to continue in that role only and come back to the Alternative Energy Committee with a more fully fleshed out program and questions you have for us to ask town council? Or do you want to establish a very clearly defined role as members of this Alternative Energy Committee and wearing that hat, come back with updates on what's going on?
Well, I feel like I could talk to the town council tomorrow and he could give me the answers I'm looking for. I don't know what more we need to do. I mean, it's very simple. We're going to construct a website with discount offers and information about various technologies. That's it. And we could ask them whether if the town were to, yeah.
When you talk to town council, are you talking as Steve Wenner, independent citizen? Are you talking as Steve Wenner on the steering committee of Go Electric, or are you talking as a committee member of the Alternative Energy Committee?
I would, if I'm going to talk to him, I would talk to him as a member of the Alternative Energy Committee and saying that we're in a quandary here as to how and whether or not we should go forward with this idea. And, you know, and that I'm talking to him to get his advice on what the potential liability issues might be for the town, whether there are any or not. Yes, I would go to him as a member of the committee. I mean, why would I go to him as a private citizen? No, I'm going to him as a member of the Alternative Energy Committee.
So then why don't I recommend this? Why don't you and Debbie write a letter to Chris Sr. Why don't you draft a letter, and if you want, it can come from the Alternative Energy Committee, and I can put my name on it with yours, or we can just have your names on it. But basically, it would be a letter to Chris saying, Chris, in continuing as members of the Alternative Energy Committee, in our exploration of a potential alternative to Solarize Plus, we have come to the conclusion that there's some key legal issues we would need to understand. And here are the following questions that we would like to have you submit to town council. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you'd like to discuss these with us, we're happy to discuss with you. Let us know. Otherwise, feel free to forward this letter to town council for town council's review. I will tell you, I have never directly talked to town council whenever I've had to, in my role as a town employee volunteer. I've never talked to town council. I've always put it in writing.
We had conversations with them as part of the aggregation program.
Could I just say something? I feel like, you know, that's a separate issue, the town council thing. I think, you know, what it still doesn't resolve, you know, sort of our role on the AEC that Tanya's grappling with and private citizens. I will say from, you know, from what's happening with us in the 3 towns, you know, it's very hard for me to be working on an exploratory capacity for the AEC with people from these other towns that are raring to go and want to make forward momentum. So I feel like, I think it's really, so Tanya, I think you and I should talk and just hammer out the strategy about what you think is best. And I think we were talking about having a meeting maybe posted in a week or so, right? Maybe next week to get the, will that be an official meeting posted for the Earth Day? Is we were talking about maybe we just, you know, you and I can discuss this a little bit, Steve, you know, the 3 of us maybe, and then And then
Yep.
we can come again with much more, you know, figured out, fleshed out, and not make everybody agonize over this. I mean, I never wanted that, and God knows, so.
Yeah,
No, no,
I
look,
apologize for
it's-
dominating the meeting here. Neither Debbie
No,
nor
no,
I
look,
wanted to do that. So I
it's
apologize.
just, unfortunately or fortunately, in town politics, you have to get the process right. And I just want, we've been, like I said, we've got a very fine line because of a conflict between what we're mandated to do and what we've been told we can do. So why don't we take it offline? I apologize. I probably, if I had been more clearly thinking, I could have proposed this much earlier. But Steve and Debbie, why don't you and I, and Brianna, if you want to be a part of it, or you think Michelle wants to be a part of it, why don't we have a conversation and just talk about how to proceed going forward, what the recommendation would be. Maybe we have Chris involved and just make it, get it, clean it up, make it very clear and effective, because I think what this committee feels is there is a pony in the barn, that there's value that could be provided to citizens and that it is consistent with our mandate. And so what's the best way to do that going forward? So why don't we do that?
Good idea.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Debbie. I think that's a very clear next step. Okay, I think we just need to run through all these, but I think we can do it very quickly. I apologize because we're coming up on 3 hours. But again, I think this Go Electric has legs, and I think it has potential value to the people of the town, and we just have to make sure everything is done properly so we don't sabotage it down the road because we did something. That's just my only concern. Okay, updates on 2020 initiatives. These are 1-sentence updates. We'll call it speed dating, if you would. So let's go, Brianna, solar energy RFP.
Select had a site walkthrough today at the water department. I think Jason Federico walked them through. The Select CEO was supposed to be there. They were approved by National Grid to have a 60 kilowatt array on the roof of the water department, and we're still looking at putting a ground mount at the water department. Yeah.
Great. Let me just mention the 60 kilowatt array may be a non-starter because it's not very lucrative for us, but at least we got the approval.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Microgrid, I'll just say there's been no progress since the last meeting following our amazing Monday microgrid sessions. I think with respect to the microgrid study, it is wrapping up and it is almost finished. And we will be getting different cost estimates for a green alternative versus what it might look like if we just focused on less costly backup generation. That gives us the ability to go to the state and to the federal government for funding. Okay, community aggregation, Steve, 1 sentence.
Okay. I talked to John O'Rourke to try to understand what the objection was from Good Energy with us writing to our legislators and asking them to gently prod and inquire at the DPU about the inordinate delay. And he just simply said, again, that they didn't think it was a good idea, but I wasn't able to get any reason from him why. And I've asked him several times on different occasions why he hesitates to have our legislators advocate for the program. So my question to the committee is, should we go, I know several of us have tried to draft a letter, and should we go ahead and send a letter anyways to Joe Moschino and Patrick O'Connor? Or should we just forget the idea? I think there's no excuse for the DPU taking well over a year to review our plans. It's just ridiculous that they. And one thing, I did talk to John. I said, do you think maybe there's some kind of energy industry lobbying going on here that's making the state administration slow ball these programs? And he said, well, we're wondering the same thing. So if the other side is, if the energy companies are lobbying, putting the brakes on this, maybe we should do a little lobbying ourselves. I don't know, but I'm just asking the committee whether we should go ahead with a letter or not.
And I'm not on the committee, but I do want to just step in and say that Chris had requested we consider sending this type of letter to our legislatures to get things moving.
Right.
So I don't see a harm in someone drafting the letter and it being presented for consideration at a later meeting.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we finalize drafting the letter? I'll entertain a motion from someone that we have Steve and Tanya and Michelle finalize the drafting of the letter to bring before the committee for potential approval at some point in the future, knowing that we may never use it, but knowing that it could be a useful tool if this continues to drag on.
So moved.
All right, thank
Seconded.
you, Pat. Who seconded?
I will. Debbie.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. All right, we have to roll call vote. Tanya Bodell, aye.
Steve Winter, aye.
Debbie Cook, aye.
Gooding, aye.
Tyler Tebow, aye.
Mike Schmidt, aye.
Data initiatives, I think there's not much to report on this, but Brianna, do you want to just tell us there's not much to report on this?
Not much to report. I'm not even going to elaborate. Yep, not much.
Okay, that's it. Not much to report, Tanya. Okay, thank you, Brianna. Okay, update on 2021 initiatives. Community solar. One sentence, Steve.
I spoke to oh, didn't I report on this last time? What's our primary?
Jackson Dowdy from Amorisco.
It's the update since last month.
Thank you, Brianna. Anyways, they're all into the community solar thing. I think it'd be great. And the only thing I want to mention is that they mentioned a couple of times that there are really good state discounts for community solar or disadvantage for low-income housing. So to the extent that I don't know how much low-income housing we have in Cohasset, but it doesn't even have to be. They don't even have to be in Cohasset. They could be anywhere. They could be in Quincy. But yes, they think that'd be a great idea to combine a solar project with have Cohasset be half the off taker and then offer the rest of the community as a community solar project. Their only question for me was there were more sites found in Cohasset than were on the original warrant article, and they want to know whether we were going back to the town to get approval of more sites, and I guess we are. So
I think we are, but we're waiting on the water plant. That would be the only site that we do.
I'm sorry.
The only site would be the water plant that would go back this.
Okay, you might want to talk to them about that because it seemed like they had identified more than one additional site that had good potential and was not on the original list. So,
right. Okay. All right. Great. What's the next item? Hold on, I just lost my agenda. There it is. Okay, sustainable grants, existing and new. I think the only thing to report is Michelle is still working on the Green Communities grant. The Mass CEC grant is finishing, and we are getting to a point where we need to start really honing in on what we want to ask FEMA to give us under a BRIC grant. And I think that's still basically a lot of other moving parts are going on to try to direct it. That will direct us on what we want to ask for, and it may be a battery.
And the FEMA,
or it may be.
oh, sorry. The FEMA preliminary interest applications are already open. So communities are already submitting them, and some of this money is first come, first serve.
Okay, so let's get going on that then, I think. Can you, Michelle, would you like to, I guess, would anybody like to work with Michelle on this? To take a look at it? What we might put together? I'm also happy to work with you, Michelle. Why don't I work? I'm Michelle, sorry, Brianna. I'll work with you on this one. So, but I think we got to get moving on this.
Okay.
So why don't you and Michelle and I put our heads together on what we want to do and bring it to the next meeting for approval.
Could I ask to be a fly on the wall to listen in?
You can actually be a part of the discussion, Pat. So yes, you can buzz as much as you want. Okay, good. So let's get going on that. By the next meeting, we should have a proposal for this committee to vote on related to what we want to ask the select board and town manager to approve us to pursue. And then we can report that to them, get their approval, and then proceed. Okay, sustainability initiative update. I'm sorry, Pat.
That's
We're like
okay.
out of time on this one.
I know we're out of time, and I'm just gonna take 1 minute because I don't want to drag the meeting out any further. So a lot of what we talked about today was very relevant to what I was going to try to talk about for sustainability. So we've covered the charter. So one of the questions I have is how sustainability fits within the charter or as an extension of the charter. So these are things that I'd like the committee to discuss as to whether or not we want to cover other aspects of sustainable efforts within this committee, or this should be the purview of something else in Cohasset and, you know, somebody else takes it up. But what I had done for today was to do a deep dive into what Concord, Massachusetts has done in terms of sustainability, and just sort of covered the areas that they focused on, and they have a pretty comprehensive plan that they've put together there, which I think we could look at to see how what we're doing today actually fits into some sustainability program, and what things may be covered by other committees in the town, and then talk more about, you know, what would a sustainability organization look like for Cohasset, and maybe figure out a way to take that on to the various committees in the town, including the select board. So that was my speed date for tonight.
Okay, that's good. So Pat, can you just keep on pushing this ball forward and getting your arms around what something like this might look like?
Yeah.
And you know, again, I think it's going to be easier to take it to this committee for vote if it's very clearly defined and fleshed out with that allows for a clear understanding of potential liability and potential benefits and potential costs. And then we can vote on it, and if we approve it, we can present it to the select board for their consideration. And then they'll probably tell us to go back and explore more, but that's fine. But at least we're trying to move the ball forward.
And just as an aside, relative to this Go Electric discussion, Steve and Debbie, if you go out, I'll send you a link, but the town of Concord does exactly what we've sort of been talking about in terms of promoting what the state offers, what Mass Save offers, all those things, and puts it in context of how residents can take advantage of it. And they even provide coaches. So you can contact an energy coach to understand how these things as a resident, you could participate in them and how they might work for your own. So I think there's a lot of learnings in what they've done that apply to different aspects of what we're doing.
Not to drag things out, but just before this this meeting, I was at another meeting. Mendon and Upton are going through this Overrise Plus program. All the technologies, they're doing everything, and they had the experts on there answering questions and so forth. They were so enthusiastic about it. It was fantastic. But they got in the program, you know, the year before, you know, when Mass AEC was still doing it. So anyway.
Anyway,
people like these things. They really do.
So anyway, I'll continue, and maybe if I could propose that we have a speaker potentially from one of the other towns that's done a sustainability program to talk about how that's fit in with the different committees in their town and how that worked.
Great.
I wholly encourage that. So if anybody has ideas about a speaker, please just coordinate with me so we can pick a date when they can be on the agenda for the first half hour. I think it was a good thing we did not have a speaker today, but on the other hand, we basically did. We had Paul Sharon. So, you know, Paul came and he was sort of our first half hour. I like this format. I think normally we can do it within 2 hours, with the first half hour being educational. So if you have ideas for speakers, and Pat, if you find somebody from another town who can come talk to us about, that is fabulous. And I highly encourage that. Just coordinate with me so that I can put it on the agenda more than 48 hours in advance. Okay. All right. Excellent. Thank you. Town hall renovation. I don't think we have an update on that. Electric buses. The only thing I will report on that is there was a lot of enthusiasm at the select board, specifically Corey Evans, about electric buses. Hands down, absolutely, we should do that. So we, I think we just need to continue to explore what the options are there. Do we have an electric bus committee, subcommittee?
I don't think so.
Okay, you know what? We have time, so let's at the next meeting discuss whether or not we feel we should establish one, and anybody who'd be interested in learning more and helping us learn more about the electric buses and the options would be on that subcommittee. Okay, electric municipalization, nothing's going on except that there is money in the proposed budget to be approved at town meeting in May to allow us to hire a consultant to help us look at electric municipalization. Okay, presentations, technologies for upcoming meetings. We've already talked about this. If anybody has a potential speaker, guests, representatives doing something cool from another town, company, or other that fits any of these categories that we've been discussing, please check in with me and Michelle and Brianna, and we would be then happy to work with you to schedule that person and give them the first half hour of a future meeting. Are there any matters not reasonably known in advance or any comments people would like to make? All right, listen, let me just say, passion fuels this committee, and the passion of every single member on this committee, and I will say especially the passion of Steve and Debbie, is appreciated and admired. And I just want to thank you for your passion, because without that passion, we would not have such an active committee and we would not be making such great gains for the town. So let's not lose our passion, although sometimes it may be discouraging when we run up against the processes, as they say in Canada, the processes of town politics and town bureaucracy. Keep the faith, and we will keep moving the ball forward. And thank you for being a part of this committee. Is there anything else anybody would like to add? All right, then at 10:32, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Pat. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we don't have to have discussion. All in favor, yay.
Yay.
Good night. We'll see you later.
Bye, everyone.
Nobody's allowed to be opposed, even if you are and want to keep it going forever. So good night. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.